If you work for yourself, save up to 50% for an entire year on the new QuickBooks Self-Employed. It helps separate your business and personal expenses so you can quickly track what you spent for work and what you spent on yourself. QuickBooks Self-Employed helps take the guesswork out of estimated federal quarterly taxes, so come tax time, you know how much money to set aside for Uncle Sam and how much stays in your pocket. Try QuickBooks Self-Employed and receive 50% off at tryselfemployed.com/test. Again, that's tryselfemployed.com/test. And now on with the show.
Hey, let's start the show.
It's June 18th, 2015. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. I'm Will Smith. Seated directly to my left, Norman Chan.
That's me.
How you doing, sir?
All right.
Are you recovered from our day trip yesterday?
Yes. Perfect day trip.
It was an in and out like ninjas to E3. Jeremy Williams, you were not there.
I was
sadly.
not. No, I haven't been to E3 in about a decade.
It's a good way to live.
I wish we could have brought you with us.
I wish I could have been there. This was the year to be at E3 if you're into VR.
If honestly, this was a good year for just games in general.
Yeah.
Like it's been a while since we've had an E3 that I came back from and was like, man, that was a good E3. But there were a ton of like surprise announcements, crazy stuff that we've been looking forward to for a long time.
Yeah.
There was a lot of crazy good looking stuff on the floor. We didn't even get to walk around on the floor very long. So
I didn't even see the Oculus booth.
I saw the Oculus booth, but I didn't usually I sneak off and go look at like Mario, what
Where was the
Nintendo's up
Oculus
to.
booth?
It's in the far right side, opposite where Microsoft was.
Oh, so it was in that same west
Same
hall.
spot
It
as
wasn't
it's always
south.
been. Yeah, I walked over there to while you were seeing HoloLens. I walked over there to see the Manus VR
I don't
gloves.
think they had a booth last year.
They had a booth.
Oculus?
Yeah,
E3?
yeah, it was right next to the farming simulator booth. Remember?
Didn't they have a nice like multi-level booth?
It's like
It
the
was
wooden
multi-level.
thing.
Previous years they were like open space. And now they do like the actual building.
Well, they stack it so they can get the most people in there demoing it and hopefully not getting pink eye at the same
Rooms.
time.
All
Yeah.
about rooms now.
Yeah, it was crazy. So what have you been into, Jeremy? What's up with you?
Well, I kind of followed E3 online a little bit.
The internet, eh?
Yep, which you didn't used to be able to do, but now it's the best way to go to E3.
Yeah.
Unless there's hardware, in which case you just drool and you wish you could touch it.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine last night who only is covering remotely, and I mean he said basically, look, usually if it's just game announcements and trailers, and it's not stuff you're going to get to the stuff you care about is usually not the stuff you get to play unless you're a judge or something anyway and get invited into the secret back rooms. The VR stuff kind of changes that because a lot of that you can't, you don't know what that's like. There's no way to experience Oculus CB1 or Morpheus or HoloLens or any of the stuff that we saw yesterday unless you actually go there and jam it on your face. So that's what we did.
Yeah. YouTube did coverage of E3 this year for the first time.
Wait, what?
Yeah, did you see that?
Their slash gaming thing.
YouTube.com/E3. They did a full 12 hours of coverage on Monday. They, all the conferences, they had people come in. I thought they're kind of competing with Twitch because they're launching their YouTube for Game service. I thought it was kind of neat.
Twitch was real catty when in their Twitter response to YouTube's game service launch. Did you see that?
No.
I can't remember what they said, but it was I remember thinking, wow, that is especially snarky. I'm good for you, Twitch. Go after tilt at those
I
windmills,
think
man.
that's genuine concern because YouTube gaming can be a really big thing.
It could be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
But-
you want to start with that as news?
Well, Twitch had like millions of concurrent viewers. I want to say like 20 million people logged in.
Right.
YouTube at their peak had about half a million.
Which to know with that market share makes total sense. I think. Let's talk about YouTube gaming if we want to jump right into news. YouTube announced that they will be doing a live stream gaming service. They already have live streaming service. We're using it right now, actually. But for capture and for people to broadcast 1080p, 60 FPS games from PC, from various input sources, to a service that you can also do DVR functionality. So people watching your live streams can actually pause, go back, jump forward. So it's basically
You can do that on Twitch though too, can't you?
I don't know if you can. You can pause for sure. I don't know if you can go back while the stream is live. But
yeah, okay.
This is clearly their way to get people to watch live content on YouTube.
Yeah.
Live content YouTube, while it's a feature that's been there, I don't think it's been mostly done for like big national type events, like White House press conferences and keynotes and that kind of stuff. But they want the day to day. This is their way to compete with live TV. And Twitch has done a great job competing for the eyes of younger viewers for live content. And done an okay job of archiving stuff. I know with their transition over from Justin, there was a lot of stuff that was lost. YouTube has a lot of they have viewers that watch subscribers. You guys watch subscribe stuff on YouTube, channels on YouTube, and I don't know if that's going to transition over perfectly. It's going to require that people actually subscribe to a separate channel. So, for example, if we started a tested gaming YouTube channel, it wouldn't be part of
weird
tested.
Wait, Norm, are we starting a tested gaming YouTube channel?
We're not.
Oh.
It wouldn't be like youtube.com/testedcom, user testedcom as we are now. It would be some other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. Yeah. Does that even work in the post plus world? I guess it does. The /user/name.
User's name is the only way you can get access to tested to us.
Okay. I think you can go to /user/tested now too.
No. Nope.
Really?
Well, Twitch doesn't archive their videos either, do they? They only last for a week or so after they've live streamed.
You used to be able to upload them to YouTube, but I bet that's going to change.
And then that happens. Like people would transition over to YouTube, but I assume that's one of the benefits of YouTube is you don't have to mess with that transition phase.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So as long as the quality's there and as long as the players are there. So Twitch, I think people like streaming on Twitch because it's easy. Mm-hmm. The big players can get revenue deals. They have ways to insert ads wherever they want, basically. And I don't know if all that stuff is going to come over to the YouTube side. Right. Like for example, if you're like a Dota streamer or something, you can stream for as long as you could. There are options where you can, for example, instead of just a pre-roll, because it's live, you stream, and then in between matches, you just click a button, and then everyone watching sees the ad while you're prepping for the next match.
So YouTube can do that stuff right now. Like we could do that on this YouTube channel today.
Say ad here.
Put the ad here.
Ad here.
Like that's in the live control panel that I'm looking at right now. The difference that Twitch has is there's also a lot of like, hey, here's like less subscription-y ways to support the channel too. So like for example, if you're watching a Spelunky stream and Bananasaurus Rex is going for a world record or something, people get really excited and start, putting, $5 into the stream, $1 into the stream. He'll get a notification that or even can feed it into like the overlay in OBS or XSplit. That then pops up and says, "Hey, Jimbo just gave me $5. Thanks for supporting the channel, Jimbo."
Wow!
And I don't think YouTube has that kind of granularity. Nor do they have all the fancy chat stuff that Twitch has over the years integrated with like custom emoji for premium channels and like there's all sorts of crazy stuff in there.
Right. So they need to do stuff on both the the viewer-facing side and on this broadcaster-facing side. Mm-hmm. To compete and not just port over the existing live stream stuff.
The way the broadcasting stuff works on YouTube for live stuff is both a little bit better than Twitch. It's more fully featured, but it's also a lot more difficult. You don't like on Twitch. You just anything that you pipe to the URL for your Twitch stream goes up. On YouTube, you have another layer of abstraction. So here we start the stream, and then we mash a button that says "Go" on the YouTube live control panel stuff, which adds it's great if we're sitting here and Joey's in there and he's able to mash the button for me when we bring up the show. If you're just one person sitting in your garage doing this by yourself, it's going to be a little more challenging. It's more stuff to manage.
Right.
Anyway, I mashed the button today, and
you mashed the other button.
I want to apologize because I did mash the button incorrectly.
Oh no!
And the viewers got a little bit of a black screen when it was supposed to be a fade. I apologize.
Jeremy, we're docking your pay this week.
You can only order. A side for lunch.
Right, you get a green salad, no French fries.
And on the consumer-facing side, they're launching a hub where you can, have your own. You subscribe to live stream channels. You can sort by games. They're going to index 25,000 games. There'll be an app, mobile versions for all that stuff. So,
did they talk about how this stuff is going to work on the consoles? Because like right now you can stream to YouTube on the consoles. I think you can definitely upload clips from YouTube from the consoles to YouTube. But I think the other thing that's important is a lot of people watch their Twitch streams on their Xbox or the PS4. And I mean, there's YouTube channels on both of those platforms at this point, I think, but I don't know if they're going to get the optimized gaming experience. Like, because that's if you want to watch game streams on.
They're working with partners on it.
Okay.
No announcements
The
yet.
standard disclaimer.
US and UK launch for the desktop side this summer. And I don't know. I mean, I'm a little out of touch with the live streaming community, with the Twitch community.
It moves fast, man.
It moves really fast.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It's weird to me that they're breaking it off for people who have established channels. So if you have an established channel that has a ton of subscribers like we do, like we can do a game stream and people will get 1,000 people watching, no problem. So like I feel like they're missing a little bit of their opportunity. But anyway, we'll see how it works out. Should we talk about E3? First off, we have a couple corrections from last week. One is that we said Beats One, the radio station that's coming with iTunes Music, is a pay service. It's free for everybody. And you can apparently add RSS feeds to the news.app, the new thing that's in iOS 9. I haven't put iOS 9 on any of my devices yet. We haven't been here long enough to do that. But we'll spend more time with that when it gets closer to launch. Or probably closer to open beta, actually, if I had to guess. The other thing is that I said that the A8X is a quad core. It's actually a tri-core. I don't think that really matters, but okay. And then the last thing is that this isn't a correction, but the 2-finger cursor movement on the keyboard works on the iPad and the iPhone. They didn't show that on the keynote, but people who've installed the beta say that stuff's there, which is a blessing, I think. So anyway, E3 stuff.
E3.
Norm, you and I got on a plane yesterday morning at 8:00. We arrived at E3 at about 9:45 a.m.
That's
maybe
correct.
10.
Yep.
Had a nice cab ride, a really good cab driver, a little Prius, it was $60, same as always. Walked in and were punched in the face with VR before we'd even gotten our badges.
That's right. Let's start with we're gonna save the Oculus talk because that's gonna be a big portion of it. Do we need the VR minute first of all?
Oh,
Let's cue it up.
Dude, I mean, if we need to
Let's cue it up.
Be official, here it is.
Bum,
I like a lot of that. I feel like you need more enthusiasm in the virtual reality. You sound a little jaded and bored, and I don't think that reflects your actual feelings about virtual reality, Norm.
Blame whoever mixed it.
Well,
I didn't.
thanks,
mix it.
Hank. Okay.
So the first thing we saw actually was Star VR. Star VR was a unknown coming into E3. They announced it last Friday, and it's a headset developed by Starbreeze Studios, a game developer. They bought the Infinite Eye. This is a Swedish game developer, and Infinite Eye have been working on. I think it was supposed to be an open source HMD with a wide field of view. So they bought this and had been worked with Overkill to make a Walking Dead demo, which is really interesting. I did chat with them. The video is going to go up, I believe, tomorrow. But we did try on the headset. So
just so you know, Starbreeze is the publisher of games like Payday 2 and Payday and the upcoming Walking Dead game and a bunch of other stuff. So
yeah,
they've been
and
making
this
games
is
for a
not
long
the
time.
Telltale Walking Dead. This is the Skybound, the comic book, official comic book Walking Dead. Wait, no, TV show Walking Dead, right?
I don't know which franchise this is based on.
Yeah, I think I want to say Telltale is tied to the comic,
Sounds right.
and this is tied to the TV show.
Yeah.
is my guess.
The pinball machine also tied to the TV show.
Right. Oh, you should put some pinball stuff in the show notes. There's some I think there's a cool thing that we should talk about. Anyway, Star VR. So ultra wide FOV. If you think of how the Oculus and Project Morpheus, for example, how those headsets are designed, the original DK1 and DK2 were basically Samsung cell phone screens, mounted in a landscape position.
Yep.
One screen over your eye with two lenses in front of it, and that's what Morpheus uses right now. It uses a 1080p LED panel, and an LCD panel, and with 2 lenses. The new crop of headsets from Steam VR, from Vive, HTC, and also on the Oculus side now use 2 panels that are mounted in the portrait orientation, and there are reasons for that, which we'll talk about when we get to the Oculus part. Star VR is 2 panels, but there are 2 panels mounted at an angle.
They're in a V.
In a V,
Like right in front of your eyeballs.
Yep, in the landscape orientation, and that gives them this really, really wide field of view. And they're
So
using
wait, so part of the screen is further away from your eye than the other part?
Yeah,
Of the
so
screen?
in the center.
And they didn't like they put the goggles on and off us, so we didn't get a good chance to look at what was going on inside. Did you see? I couldn't even tell if there were optics in front of the screens.
Oh yeah, there
were?
definitely Fresnel lenses, and the optics are the really challenging part, because we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Why do you have optics in VR? And the optics are not only to enhance your field of view, but also so you have this infinite the focus,
So that you can
for
focus
lenses. You can
on something so close to your eyeball.
Exactly. And the optics when have to be adjusted when lenses are mounted at an angle to your eyes, so you can actually see to the edge.
Right, so
if
the-
they're really, if you really want that 210 degrees.
So part of the optics are going to be different than other parts, because
Yeah.
part are designed to focus on something that's actually closer
Exactly.
than the other part.
So not only
Wild.
are there challenges in the optics for the angle, but also for how wide it is. Because the bigger the screen, the edge of the optics have to also work for the edge of the screen.
Yeah.
Or you just lose the edge of the screen.
Or you just lose it. And
Yeah.
because they want to push that 210-degree field of view, horizontal field of view, 130 vertical, they needed really special optics. And they're using Fresnel lenses, which diffuse the screen door effect. They're using 2 2560 by 1440 panels.
Whoa.
So they're calling it 5K resolution.
That's kind of
VR.
bullshit though, because that's per eye. It's 2.2K per eye.
Right, 2.5K, but you're
Yeah.
you're still rendering for 5K total.
Okay.
I mean, just like there's a 4K, a 2K panel in Morpheus. This
More
is-
pixels
yeah.
per eye, right?
It's more. It's Yeah.
The screen door was much less pronounced on that than any other headset we've used. However, for me, that was immediately offset by the fact that I couldn't keep the sweet spot of the lenses lined up with my eyeballs.
here's where the challenge of that lens it really isn't overcome, at least
Yeah.
in this prototype, is something we also learned coming out of E3 is for Fresnel lenses, which Oculus is using, Star VR is using, there is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest differences, as we'll talk about in the Oculus, where they refined Consumer Rift versus Crescent Bay. In Star VR, that sweet spot, where your eye is positioned in relation to that lens and for clarity, was much smaller, which means if the headset, which was heavy, jostled out of the way a little bit, we were constantly, both one and I think, were adjusting the headset to get to that sweet spot. Otherwise, it would look blurry.
Glasses on.
I actually had
No,
glasses
you had to
off.
take your glasses off.
Yeah.
I wore contacts. I wouldn't have been able to see it without contacts in. It was. I mean, okay. First off, I apologize. I had to go get UPS a second ago, but this is very clearly an early prototype, right?
Yeah.
This is not something that they're expecting to ship. They're not talking about shipping or anything like that, right?
No. But they want to. I mean, even though there's a prototype, the direction they're going in, they made their choices are for wide field of view over, for example, low persistence and over frame rate right now.
So how do you like it?
So 60 FPS, it was definitely, you saw judder when you shook your head around. The actual wide field of view part of it was cool, but the demo they designed for it didn't make use of it as much as they could have.
The thing that I noticed immediately is that like their software, their rendering stuff was not as good as the stuff. I mean, obviously, as the people have been working on it longer, but you had in the early DK1 days when you'd see a demo and somebody didn't have the left eye, right eye rendering lined up the way your brain expects that to be, and you had like a disc, your brain had to kind of squinch edges of things to make them be where they should be, especially when things got close to the camera. There was a lot of that. Like that stuff was real rough, and if you got motion sick in VR, it would have been a bad experience. I
Right.
think.
So the demo they made was a Walking Dead themed demo where you're a character in a wheelchair, and they actually sat you in a wheelchair. So you're, it's on rails essentially. Someone in the game is pushing you through the world. You're wearing the headset so you can look around. There is positional tracking. So the other interesting thing is they're using positional tracking with a camera and fiducial markers. This is like the opposite of the Valve Steam
The
Room.
fiducials are on the headset.
On the
right?
headset.
Yeah.
They're on
Exactly.
cubes that are mounted to the top, to
Yeah.
the sides of
They're-
the headset, or
they're all-
the front of the headset and on top of the gun.
Yes. So on the headset, they had markers because it's an angle they had on the both sides and on the top and bottom, and also on this accessory they gave you a plastic shotgun to hold with working trigger and also working
A slide.
slide with two cubes mounted to get a full view of the camera, and they didn't give many details, the technical details at all about, the field of view of the camera and the latency and responsiveness and IMU stuff. It's obviously combined with IMU data.
They said there's an IMU for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, in both the
Yes.
shotgun and the glasses.
Yep. But it really showed that with good IMU data, presumably high polling rate and good data and good software, the positional tracking even with QR codes was good. Like this is probably it's like when we talked last week about the difference between Lighthouse positional tracking and IR base in Constellation. We didn't know what the trade-offs would be in accuracy, distance from the camera, where where the limitations are. Even with QR codes, that's like the far end of what Constellation, the low end of what Constellation, right? Because there's dumb markers, not
Yeah.
blinking, no syncing, but it was still good enough.
Well, and a much more limited number of points than Constellation
So-
or Lighthouse
Right.
has.
So
The-
it builds confidence on positional tracking. It's even software can compensate for a lot of that.
Well, the thing I noticed, like, if you wanted to know where it stands in terms of positional tracking compared to say DK1, DK2, it's definitely more on the DK2 side than the DK1 side.
Well, DK1 had no position.
It had no right, exactly. It was just using skeletal interpolation and the gyroscope and accelerometer. It wasn't a great experience. This was pretty good, and you were able to, like, your range was pretty good. Like, as far as I could lean outside of the wheelchair, I was
Yeah.
able to do those stuff that I needed to do. The big thing for me was that the ergonomics of the headset were real rough. It was very, very heavy, front heavy especially, more so than any of the early Oculus prototypes or any of the stuff that we've seen before. And it was constantly riding down on your cheekbones, and you had to constantly push it back up, and it got fogged up because it was moving around, and like it was a real rough experience. Now, the thing that they did was they gave you the shotgun, which was also tracked in a full 6 degrees. That was super cool because you could do things like hold it up over your head and shoot off to the side.
Did the
You
model
could shoot
use
over there.
inverse kinematics to move his arms
Yeah,
around
so
to follow the gun?
we saw a lot of inverse kinematics this weekend, yesterday. Yeah, so inverse kinematics means that they take the position of your hand of where you want the endpoint to be, or in this case, where the endpoint is because you've moved it, and then they reverse engineer the joints of the skeleton to basically put them in places that they could conceivably be, which usually line up with where you are in the real world, but sometimes you end up with really hilarious misrepresentations of where your hands
It's
are.
what roboticists use also
It's
to help program bipedal robots and quadrupedal robots.
Valve has shied away from doing that, interestingly, and I guess Oculus as well, because there's enough of an immersion factor if you just show the thing that actually is tracked.
That's the thing that was yes.
So-
because the problem that they had with this thing was that eventually it would drift enough that your viewport would be way too close to your shoulders, and you'd be looking over, and your shoulder would be way up here, like you were wearing football pads or something almost. It was the other thing that I want to mention about this is that they were doing some really kind of cheesy stuff that works really well in VR. So they had people standing all around you watching you do the demo, of course. And when you were at a place where the zombies were grabbing at your wheelchair, the guy behind you would kind of shake the wheelchair a little bit.
Nice.
Or when the zombie would grab your shoulder in the game, they would grab your shoulder. And I mean, it was super scary.
It means all it means outside of what Star VR is that you can do a lot of things to assist in the virtual reality experience, like haptic rumble.
Yeah, strapping a
haptic
subwoofer
feedback.
on your chair is
Exactly.
a thing that we're going to see again, I
And
think.
things that developers can build
Yeah.
into their games, optional accessories that will enhance the experience. The experience of holding the shotgun, a physical object, and have that represented. Even if I would have been happy if it was just a floating shotgun with no arms. Just having that.
I think it would have been
perfectly-
better as a floating shotgun with no arms, probably.
being able to look down the virtual sight of that by holding the shotgun up to the headset
Yeah.
was super cool. Now they did not put tracers in the game for the shotgun blast, and it seemed really like wild accuracy. They didn't want it to be like pinpoint accuracy, but I think they could have done some cool things.
They were cheating. So I did that loop twice while you were doing the interview. So I experimented the second time. They were fast and loose with aim on the shotgun. So the zombies that they wanted to die died as long as you shot a blast in the general vicinity of the zombie. It was an E3 demo, not a
Of its
real
head.
game.
So it seems like the thing that they're really pushing, or at least the thing that got press about this hardware, was the FOV, though. And you guys don't seem to come away from it thinking FOV is something that
Oh, no.
makes a huge
Now,
difference.
It was wonderful.
It was.
FLZ
Yeah.
does make a difference, but you have to design a game that'll take advantage of it. Like this, where in the moments wearing Star VR prototype, where the optics were perfectly aligned and I wasn't fogged up, I didn't feel like I was wearing binoculars.
But like, here's the thing: a narrow. The environments that they were in, you started out in a hospital. It was dark. It was a zombie post-apocalypse. You went outside into an alley, also a narrow, dark corridor. There wasn't a lot to look at. It was very dark for the most part, except for places that were spotlit, Half-Life style or Left 4 Dead style. I think that the FOV is much more interesting in an expansive environment. Like if you're in an exploration, if you're playing like a Zelda-like game where you're exploring an overland, or you're coming out of the vault in Fallout, or you're coming over the cliff in Skyrim, and you have this massive world laid out in front of you. Like that's the stuff that I want to see with the wide FOV.
Or the God
corridor
perspective.
shorters are super boring for me in the wide FOV. I think the God perspective is tough with the wide FOV because I think you're going to get a weird lens distortion.
No, the God perspective, if it's like Lucky's Tale, just being able to see the entire map. You don't need to focus on it, but just having that is more immersive. Or the floating island game, you don't need the render stuff, but just having color and detail out in the peripheral.
Having seen a wide FOV, do you think it should be a high priority for Oculus and Valve?
Let's talk about that when we get to Oculus and Valve. Valve wasn't at E3 first off, so we're not going to talk about Valve today. The last, I think that's it for Starbreeze for me.
The point.
Oh, sorry, the API stuff we should talk about.
The reason they are making a headset as a game development studio is they want to own end to end. They didn't talk about developer relations at all. They said they were, embracing Valve's open VR standards. They have their games on Steam. I asked them how easy it would be, for a developer to port existing VR games or stuff to work with, is it just FOV change and rendering more? And they couldn't commit to that. They said that they're developing something that's going to be optimized for their Valhalla engine. And if there's only if it's a handful of games, I know they want to be on top of the VR stuff, but they need to move fast.
They better
and get
be
people on board.
good games.
Do they have Unity and Unreal on board?
They didn't say. They said they'd talk their engine.
Okay. Yeah, so that like, I mean, I'm okay with there not being VR standards, VR equivalents of OpenGL and DirectX, but I think like with the number of games that come out that use Unity, the number of VR games that are in the pipeline that use either Unreal or Unity, I think if you don't work with those, then you've got issues. Okay, next on the list we went and saw Morpheus. Do you want to do Morpheus first?
Yeah, let's talk about Morpheus.
Or we can talk about HoloLens if you want.
Let's do HoloLens real quick.
Okay. So I saw HoloLens at Build a few months ago. Did a kind of programming coding demo. You had your first HoloLens experience yesterday. What'd you think?
So this was not the Minecraft demo that they showed on the press. This is actually a demo they didn't mention at all. I don't know if maybe people have written about it or talked about it. This is called Project X-Ray, and it was a first-person shooter. They called it Mixed Reality FPS. And to let everyone know, we actually didn't get a chance to shoot video. They wouldn't let no photos, no video in this demo room. So I was brought into a room as better lit than the room we're in now, about 15 feet by 15 feet, 4 walls with some minor, small furniture, chairs in the edges, and a small table. Put on the HoloLens, wireless, everything we've talked about before. It looked like the same hardware that people had saw it build.
I think that the hardware is pretty final, from what I understand.
Yes. From what I understand, the field of view problem is they're not going to change that.
That's a second. We've had some off the record or off background conversations with people that imply that that's a problem that won't be solved unless that type of display manufacturing gets ramped up.
And I think they said on the Giant Bombcast yesterday that that's it.
You're referring to the fact that HoloLens appears in a window in front of you.
It's projections.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them projections instead of holograms. The projections.
That's the right word. Probably.
Only appear in a rectangle. If you hold your cell phone, let's say you have a 5-inch cell phone, you want to hold it about a foot from your face.
That's about 18 inches. I make a rectangle with my hands, like I'm making a 16:9 rectangle, and hold it 12 inches from my face, and that's
hold your
5-inch
cell phone a foot from your face, and that's where you can see the projections.
Like in order to get that Minecraft scene that they had on the keynote, which was on a probably 3 foot by 3 foot or 4 foot by 4 foot plinth into your entire field of view, the way they were implying you were going to see it in the keynote video, you would have to be 10 feet away, I think. So yeah, it's like. That stuff, was that your initial reaction when you put it on was, oh shit, the FOV is small?
I mean, I knew that that was the anticipation, that FOV would be small.
Were you surprised still, or did you feel like it met your expectations?
My expectations were appropriate, but I was unimpressed by the FOV.
Yeah. Did you adapt to the FOV after you used it for a moment or two?
Yeah, you're forced to. But so I'll describe the game. The other aspect of the HoloLens is that everything else in the world is perfectly clear to you. Like even though in the photos it looks like it's smoked glass.
Yeah.
It's perfectly translucent. You can just see through the world.
It's very lightly smoked. It's
very lightly.
Like the demo room that I was in at Build was lit like a Virgin America plane at takeoff, right, when the lights are still on, and you could see everything fine. It wasn't like wearing a pair of sunglasses.
So the game, though, they called it Project X-Ray, and this was like that Magic Leap YouTube demo, which everyone criticized, where they had people, aliens crawling through the wall and breaking through the wall, because that's what this was. So they gave me an Xbox controller to hold in one hand, and all I did with an Xbox controller was use the trigger buttons, one for a slow-mo and one for the fire. And to aim, your cursor is right in the center. It's only head look. There's no eye look. The cursor, the target, is right in the center of that FOV. But the room was scanned. They didn't tell me. They couldn't confirm whether it was scanned beforehand or was being done in real time. But what was scanned was the walls. So this is clearly a software thing. They said, only put for this game, for this piece of software, the structure that matters that we scan are the walls. Ignore furniture, ignore small things, ignore people. And looking at the walls, I had a character fly in the room around me, like a flying robot, talk to me. Positional sound was really good. And then I heard rumbling, and there were cracks in the walls, and the wall piece of it broke open, and a pipe came through, and then aliens flew out of it, and I had to shoot them. And that was really fun.
So, but the aliens couldn't be occluded by anything in the environment,
correct.
Right?
So if I put my hands in front of where the alien would be, I would just see it would be in front of my hand.
Yeah.
And I could see my hand a little bit, can still see it. Better than, it was more opaque than Google Glass, but it wasn't perfectly opaque. Right. It wasn't distracting.
And there was nothing in the environment behind which they could hide or anything.
Exactly. So the people giving the demo, the chairs and the furniture, when I looked at them, the alien flew over them. It just went over them.
Got it.
Like the whole, I could fire a blast and create a crack in the wall, and I tried shooting at the people, and it just created the crack, and that's when it looked weird.
It goes it ignores the people there.
It ignores the people, and it tried to just create the crack that was, adjacent to the wall. But it was very believable that when I looked at the flat wall and had the monsters burst out, and when I shot the walls, and they created a fake facade behind the wall, brick wall, and some piping.
That sounds cool.
And they do a really good job generating an illusion of depth in something that's a 1D plane, right? Because they're doing shading like a cartoon, like you would in a cartoon, to indicate that there's an inch of gypsum board that's flat shaded gray and has shadows and they're appropriate to the room and all that.
It wasn't super deep, so it wasn't like I could blow a hole in the wall and look into a world behind it.
Oh,
it
see,
was maybe about a foot deep of where they put the other stuff.
But that's just a software problem. I mean, right? They could have rendered that.
The thing that we did in build was literally a world behind a hole in the floor. So like at first you shot the hole, you were supposed to put the hole in the floor, and then I realized that if you could put the hole in the ceiling, then you'd be inside the world underneath there. And I was able to shoot the hole in the ceiling, clip through the wall of the underground world, and then walk around in the underground world.
Were you impressed by the fidelity of the graphics? Because they can put all those pixels into a small box.
Yeah, so it wasn't photoreal. It was like kind of cell shaded type graphics. But I was really impressed with the latency and the registration, how well that stuff tracked.
Really?
Yes, like I shook my head a bunch, rotated.
Things didn't jump around.
There was no hopping. It wasn't like an early Kinect game where
impressive.
It would be here and then it would jump around and then it would snap back. The other thing that it did that I was impressed by was it was really good at detecting flat surfaces and where what was in play basically. So it wouldn't let you put something on like a person where it wouldn't make sense or that they could move because there wasn't enough flat area basically on the person.
So for a shooter, where it really broke was that field of view, where when the robots flew out of that rectangle, when they were completely out of the rectangle, I thought that was okay, because they designed it so the cursor would give you a little arrow to point to where they were in the room. And I would just move my head quickly, and I could dodge, things that were firing at me. But when they were being half rendered in the rectangle and partially off of it, that's when it really broke.
And there's a hard cut where they stop rendering?
Cut.
Yeah. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that the amount of pixel fill on the display is really, really high. So it's much closer to something like the Avegant display that we looked at CES that uses DLP projection than, say, a traditional LCD, where the amount of light generated is relatively small compared to the overall size of the pixel. So I didn't notice a screen door effect at all. And that to me makes me as optimistic about this as anything else, because I think that maybe I think they could get away with the same number of pixels, but make the pixels bigger, and you'd still get good effects to give you more coverage area in terms of FOV going forward. So when I did the demo, I noticed that there was definitely some judder when you were moving, circling an object, like circle strafing around an object.
I didn't notice that, and I was definitely circle strafing.
Okay.
I had the robot. They actually froze the demo for me.
You moved around the room.
Yes, I was walking around the room the whole time.
Because it's wireless, it's self-contained.
Yeah, so walking around, and I actually bumped into furniture because I forgot the furniture was there. Because as I tried to get close to the hole in the wall to look through it, my foot, there was a chair below me, and I just bumped into it. And they saw I was trying to inspect these projections, so they paused the game at one point, and I walked around the robot, looked at the robot, and it was convinced. I mean, it was a cartoon, essentially, but it looked like it was in that space with me.
Well, how close could you get to him?
So that's another thing we did talk about in the video. Once I got to about 6 inches from it, it did gray out. So it doesn't render all the way up to close to your eyes.
The developer that I talked to at Build said that that's we actually changed that setting in the application. You can set where the clip plane is for the render, and if you set it 24 inches out, it will clip 2 feet from in front of your face. We ended up setting it at 3 inches, and I could literally put my face into objects before they clipped.
Wow.
So that's up to the developer to decide how they want to handle it.
So it's interesting when you talk about this field of view, that having this box in front of you, it's still 3-dimensional in terms of being able to get close to you.
Oh yeah,
So it's like a cone of, I would imagine.
Yeah, the further away it is, the better the thing is. Now the thing that you're limited by is the headset's map of the room. So you were probably in a relatively small room where it was able to map the entire thing and had a probably well-established map of the room. We were in a big ballroom in a hotel, so you could walk outside of the area that was mapped, and it's since they're using stereo depth cameras, figure 15 feet maybe on the outside, probably with the best results inside 10 in the 10 to 0 feet, but because it has IMUs and it's tracking your position throughout the room, like it will keep the map of the parts of the room that you've been in, or presumably that other people that are using headsets and are on the same network as you have been in. So did more than one person have the glasses on in your room, or was it just you?
Just me.
Yeah, I want to see this working with multiple people. And I really want to talk to somebody about FOV. Like, we've never been in a situation. Was there anybody there who could talk about technical stuff with
Nope, they refuse to.
you? Yeah, we haven't, like, they don't let anybody film it. Because I mean, I understand why. Because it's gonna, people look super dumb when they're walking around with these headsets on, and waving their hands in front of them and stuff. Like, what I didn't get a strong feeling that they knew what people were going to use this for when I had the demo. Did you? I feel like that had changed.
It really sounded like between the Minecraft stuff and this stuff, they really want to put gaming applications on this.
But you're also at E3.
Exactly. It seems like from all the things we've heard about for HoloLens, they're trying so many things, which at this point, it feels like very up in the air on Microsoft's side of what their marketing for this is going to be. Like, if this presumably is sold by the end of the year, they've already said it's going to be more, kind of expensive. It's going to be more expensive than $300.
Well, it's its own computer.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a self-contained own computer, has its own battery and everything. But how are they going to sell it? Like, I don't know what that marketing campaign looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know why you buy this. Is the big issue right now?
And it sounds like not only I don't care that I don't know because they haven't shown us everything yet, but it really feels like they don't know.
That was the feeling I got.
It seems like it has a lot of commercial applications. I mean, you could imagine museums adopting this as something that they rent out to make exhibits come alive.
Yeah, but
or an evolution of laser tag where
yes, and definitely but that's limited, and even in the professional workspace,
right?
Engineering,
architecture,
that seems like the best, and that's where this really feels like a Microsoft product.
So one of the demos they showed Patrick when he went, because there were two loops at Build, and he went on the app demo, the app loop, and I was on the programming loop. The app loop, they had an architecture demo where you looked at like a blank wall, and then it rendered in the room that was going to be on the other side of that wall behind it. And that stuff sounds interesting. I think like a lot of it's going to be limited by the small FOV, and they're really not doing themselves any favors by doing those Minecraft, like that Minecraft video that they showed at the press conference.
When they hook a HoloLens up to a camera,
and
it fills the full FOV of the camera, that's not indicative of what it looks like.
And just to be clear, it could be fair because they could be using lenses that mimic the FOV of the covered part of the lens,
right?
But that doesn't mimic the human experience, which is what people are seeing that, and they're thinking their whole vision is filled with with the projections. The other thing is everything they've shown so far has been kind of viewers. Like they haven't shown a whole lot of here's stuff like they had that first demo in January that was here's working this weird 3D rendering application, but they haven't after that. Like the Minecraft thing was all demos. It was like a viewer for somebody else's world. You could follow your friend walking through the Minecraft world. So I have a lot of questions about it. I'm still interested in it. I think it's neat.
You could say lightning bolt, right? You flash lightning strike, and you could send lightning into the world.
So it seems like voice commands are the main way you interact with it. Because did you do any gestures at all?
No, and they actually disabled gestures because this was a gamepad one.
Okay.
And even the act of showing me the gamepad, what I was supposed to do was activating the gesture accidentally, so they disabled it.
So we have a video for that coming up. There's no footage. It's just us talking about, like, right after you came out of the room, we sat down and talked in the Microsoft booth about what the experience was like. How did you think? Projections were pretty opaque, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. I mean, that stuff is amazing in a lot of ways.
My feeling is that I find it hard to believe that no one at Microsoft has any idea what Magic Leap's FOV is.
I don't know, man. They're pretty secret.
I know Magic Leap is pretty secret, but like MIT people have seen Magic Leap, like Technology Review, and it's not like complete black box right now.
Right.
So
you think they're trying to get out in front of Magic Leap?
Well, if someone at Microsoft Research, or if anyone at Microsoft working on this has an idea of what the FOV, and that's their direct competitor for AR, for Magic Leap, then they're making a strategic decision of one, they're comfortable thinking that Magic Leap is they're close to Magic Leap's FOV, which we don't know what it is, or two, that they think that that's a strategic decision to just release ahead of it and have better marketing. But if Magic Leap is really super wide FOV, full side to side at least, just horizontal FOV, that would kill this.
Yeah.
as a concept.
If it's the bigger FOV wins with the augmented stuff, I think. Unless it's not standalone or like
of
the
course-
standalone is hard to overestimate its usefulness.
And taking into account perfect registration
Yeah.
and opacity.
I went and saw Manus VR. They're making virtual reality gloves, and they're working with the Gear VR right now. So they had a Samsung Galaxy S6 in the Gear VR. What is it called? 2 Dev Kit 2, whatever.
With the back off, and they're using the camera from the phone.
So they had the back off, and they had a wide angle lens on the phone camera.
Oh,
Interesting.
And then they had gloves that felt like just not normal nylon gloves with an IMU on the top that had the Bluetooth receiver and the battery and all that stuff to run that. But then they had like a resistive a material that was running in strips down the back of each finger, starting at the bone basically on the top of your hand, and then running down the finger that adjusted resistance when you bend your finger.
Yeah.
So similar to the old Power Glove, if you want to get old school about it. But we didn't do a video for this because it was a crazy busy day. But basically, you put the gloves on, and then they put colored socks over the top of the IMU just to hold it in place. One was one color, one was the other, and that was the way they could differentiate the right hand and the left hand in the camera. And they were taking the visual tracking data, the finger movement data, and the IMU data, and combining that to do what I would call pretty low update rate, but very high fidelity. Very, very well done.
Wow.
Finger, like it was much better than anything we've seen before that used a bunch of IMUs on your fingertips and stuff like that.
So what did you actually see in the?
So you put the
VR?
goggles on, and they had a game demo that was basically, it was kind of like a res style shooter that you weren't moving through tunnels, but you were in a world you could turn around and shoot stuff on all sides, and you could make gun fingers to shoot laser bullets basically.
Really?
Or you could make fists and charge up a super missile attack and then release it and shoot 90 missiles all at once. And the registration, like, I don't know. I feel like the fidelity would not be good enough to say pick something up and hand it to somebody else with the Gear VR hardware, just because the Gear VR has no way to track where other people are in the room and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was much better than I was expecting, given the kind of nature. It's relatively simple hardware, right? And they very light. The gloves were very light. The IMU weighed less than a cell phone. It seemed like the kind of thing you could wear for a while. The stuff that they were showing was obviously prototypes and not like final industrial design. But you calibrated it. You held it up in front of yourself and to calibrate. Put your fists inside the circles, and it said, "Okay, open your left fist, open your right fist, close both, open both, close both, open both." And then it was like, "Okay, play," and it worked shockingly well.
And how far behind your movements was the virtual movement?
That was very fast. The thing that was happening was the update rate on the movements seemed like a significant fraction of the frame rate of the game demo. So if the game demo was running at 60 frames a second, I would say that the updates were maybe happening 15 times a second. So it was like the movement of your finger, instead of being a smooth fluid movement, was kind of chunky. Yeah, but it was neat. I mean, I thought it was impressive. They said it wasn't going to be super expensive. They were looking at like $200. Is the thought that they're working toward right now,
and
for
your release
a
time frame?
crowdfunding thing. They're going to crowdfund it at some point in the not too distant future, I assume.
That sounds promising.
It was like, it is the kind of thing that it's good that it exists. I would wait to see who's going to support it and what the applications are going to look like before spending my money on it. But it's promising technology, and it's the best application of that I've seen so far.
I hope they consider haptics, because the one thing I want is to be able to feel things come back onto my hands, even vibration, something small.
Yeah. I mean, just direct electrical stimulation, right?
Sure, I'll take it.
Zap you.
So let's talk about Morpheus next.
Can we talk about Kanye first? Because we saw Kanye before Morpheus.
Perfect. Yeah, well, we saw Kanye at Morpheus.
Yes. So we went into the Morpheus. I was kind of surprised that we rate the special celebrity room at E3 now. Usually they just dump us off in some side room someplace. So this was
The
good.
room was a giant bomb. So I mean, this goes back to why going to E3 and going to these events is important for when there's new hardware to show, and even games on interesting hardware like virtual reality hardware. Morpheus, Sony had lots of 30 Morpheus games were being shown on the show floor, and they were that big booth set up, a giant booth set up. They had just developer meeting room, and we went to the press meeting room where they had 6 demos, that were all a little different.
Like and different. Like when you say a little bit different, you mean different perspectives, different types of like there was a puzzle game, there was a shooter, there was a racing type thing.
Interactions were different, but
different types of controls.
Kanye was there, doing the London Heist demo, shooting guys with his virtual Uzi out of a truck, and saying things like,
"Super dope,
super dope,
super dope,
super dope." He was having a lot of fun with that.
He was sitting in a way that I've never seen anybody sit and play VR games before.
Yeah.
Like normally you get in the VR chair and you kind of rear back and you let your head do the work. He was fully like leaned over, hunched, hands on the gamepad,
move controllers.
Yeah, was it move controllers? Yeah. Leaning way forward and like just super into it. It was really funny.
The super dope is exactly what VR is.
I think VR is super dope.
Yes,
I'm totally okay
right.
with that.
But then
I envy anyone who's coming into VR at this stage. Yeah. For the first time, who's trying on a VR goggle at this year.
So the funniest part of that whole thing was we walked in and they had signs up everywhere that were like no shooting. I was like, what the fuck, man? I specifically asked for the meeting that we could shoot stuff. And then I was a little pissed because we're giving you an hour here. Come on, man. So he's like, no, look over there. I was like, oh, that's why we can't. Okay, no cell phones either, by the way. So we didn't get selfies.
How
with
we
Kanye.
know that we were late 20 minutes to the meeting because we were running around. And they found the wrong places. Kanye was in the room that we were supposed to go to, and they still let us in.
Yeah, I felt good.
Thank you so much,
Sony. Yeah,
Sony.
Thanks, Andrew.
So the games we'll go. I mean, there's a video that's going to go up early next week where we describe basically all the games.
You're gonna start with Super Hypercube,
but I don't want to talk through every game in detail.
Are you going to talk about the hardware? Has it evolved?
Yeah, so the hardware definitely has evolved. Not in the how it looks on the inside. I think it still looks very similar to what we saw, if not exactly the same as what we saw back at GDC. But the ergonomics are improved. The way you put on the headset, it's still this halo ring that sits more like a crown, but the way you slide that in, it's a slide system for the top to put it over your head, and then you tighten in the back, and then there's an additional slider for the headset, so you kind of push it into your face. You get very, very little pressure or contact on your face because the rubber gaskets they use, and so like the foam stuff, it's not like.
That's been true since their first generation.
Exactly. So it's great. It felt great ergonomically. The tracking stuff was as accurate I think as it always has been.
I feel like the Move controller is a good entry point for like hand tracking in VR. Like it works pretty well.
I would say it works pretty well. Some of the demos tried to do inverse kinematics, which I didn't think worked well. But the Move controller for example, because that works both. It has a function both as a pistol grip and also for holding things like flashlights. Like in that London Heist demo we played at GDC, the flashlight you held with the Move controller was not your American style flashlight where you hold it like you point the light, you hold it like vertically.
Right.
So the ergonomics of holding a Move controller, if anyone who has a Move controller at home right now can try it. If you try to hold it like a pistol, it feels weird.
You kind of have to rest it diagonally against your palm. Yeah,
the angle of it isn't perfect for that representation, but I think it's okay. There was no new Move controller unveiled. I know a few days ahead of E3, there's these images leaked online about it could have been Move 2, and Sony has now said, and even Palmer said this, that was just like some design firm who wanted some PR.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. So it's still the same Move controllers. You're going to get positional tracking with that. You get tracking also with the
DualShock 4.
The DualShock 4.
Because it has the light.
Has the light and IMUs on the inside. So the representation of that in the game can be pretty accurate, although you don't get your fingers, obviously.
And that is an order of magnitude jankier than the Move, I would say. The DualShock.
Did you see it in the Super Hypnocube?
That one was pretty good. It still hopped around a little bit.
It didn't hop around.
It might be because I'm a little taller than you. Like I was maybe holding it at a different spot or something.
Yeah. The kitchen demos were.
The kitchen demo was rough,
and that was a lot of it was reverse kinematics, and also where the boundaries of tracking were.
Yeah.
So as a general overview, without getting into what every game was, because you got to watch the video, because we were able to shoot the screens for the games, and that will help.
Most people don't let you do.
Exactly. puzzle game, fantastic.
Super Hypnocube is a game. It's being published by Polytron, and it's built by a small game collective that's distributed all over the world. If you've ever seen the Japanese game show Hole in the Wall, where people have to like form puzzles, they wear these big helmets, and then a big giant styrofoam wall comes at them, and if they don't make the right shape, they get knocked into a swimming pool on the other side of the wall.
Yes.
It's like that, but with Tetris.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I mean, it is one of the single best like game VR things we've seen yet.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things that could have worked great in like a Virtual Boy, but because with head tracking, you're looking around the Tetris as opposed to the block falling vertically. It's falling forward.
So yeah,
the wall is coming at you, and you have to look around your block to see what the hole is, and then rotate it so it fits.
It's like those scenes
as
in
the wall comes at
Tron
you.
where you're moving really, really fast, and there's a big giant wall with a little tiny hole really, really far away, and the blocks cover your field of view. So you have to totally peek around.
And that was a standing experience as well.
Yeah.
The kitchen demo was more of a
horror
super tried to be as realistic as possible. I think it was more of a demo of positional sound and also the using the DualShock as a way to simulate, abstract the idea of your hands being tied together.
They've done that a lot, actually.
Yeah, so if you're holding the DualShock controller,
Oh,
but in the
right.
game it showed your hands being bound together like you were trapped.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
You were captive.
that was a cool implementation of it, but like we said, the inverse kinematics didn't work, and the elbowing stuff was no good.
Like the thing that was notable to me about that is that they were trying for photorealism or something close to it, and I think that the Morpheus and the PS4 probably are not as capable of that, at least in a broad sense, as say a $1,000 gaming PC.
And also, it really seemed like that while Sony is letting developers like do what they want, experiment with things, there weren't real guidelines, for example, about text, because text was really difficult to read in
Was
that
there
demo.
text in the kitchen?
Demo in the credits?
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't get that
Whereas
far.
across the Oculus demos that we've seen, which we'll talk about, there was really some good consistency about readability for text, like bolder text, more spaced out, larger. And I don't know if that's something that Sony will need to let its developers know, but because these are early demos and prototypes, that's not something that's been built in yet.
I thought Oculus had changed something also about the way they're rendering text now. They're rendering it an overlay in front of the...
I don't think that's implemented.
Okay.
It was not implemented in demos
stuff
we
we
saw.
saw.
It
Okay.
was just nicely anti-alias, super sampled.
big fonts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like vector text.
They showed a game where 4 players were playing, an asymmetric game experience where 4 players were playing on a couch with DualShocks, and they were playing against a person in VR. This was analogous to... They also had Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes on the show floor. These were both analogous to...
Do you mean a synchronous game where they're all
Asymmetrical.
asymmetrical? Oh,
Asymmetrical
gotcha.
means,
I thought you said asynchronous.
Like
All right.
Wii U.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yep.
People have a
So-
different experience depending on which seat they're in.
At the Sony keynote, Morpheus was only briefly mentioned, but the things they did mention was they're experimenting with social. This is where Morpheus could have, I wouldn't say like a leg up, but differentiate itself from desktop VR experiences, where you can actually do. With a couch VR experience, you can have 5 people playing at the same time. And so from a technology standpoint, the thing they did is demonstrate that they can have one PlayStation 4 with whatever graphics capability it has without any external graphics hardware, render enough to get 120 FPS on the Morpheus, but also show something on the TV.
Does it run 120?
Morpheus, I believe,
It runs
120.
60 or double frame rates to
No
120.
kidding.
It depends on what the game is, right?
Right, I
The game
understand.
that we're talking about was a flat shaded, relatively simple game, and it looked.
Morpheus is
it looked
120
nice.
LCD, 120 1080p.
But remember, they have the frame doubling thing.
Which is an option.
Yes, which is an option for the developer. The this was a really nice looking demo. It used a lot of the assets that we saw at GDC and their demos at GDC. And basically, I was playing a giant monster, smashing stuff with my head, while Norm and whoever else was playing on the couch were trying to run away from me and or kill me when they got to the end.
Oh, a correction. Morpheus is OLED, not LCD. I believe the first ones were LCD.
Oh, it's square pixels on the ones we saw, though.
Yeah, it didn't look like. I get confused every time because it did not look like the traditional OLED screen.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't.
So maybe it's something with the optics. It had a shimmer that made me think LCD.
Sony also is one of the only people making large OLED TVs in any kind of quantity. So maybe they could be doing something different than what we're accustomed to on phones. The next three things we should go over really quickly. The one that was most interesting, I think, was the Impulse Gear demo. This is the thing, Wired did a big story about it earlier this week. It's basically a first-person shooter demo. They cooked up a custom controller using those old... You remember the plastic gun things that you snapped in a Move controller and the Nav controller into last generation? So you had... This was the second and better of the virtual guns being replaced by a real prop gun. It had a Move controller in the front, so they were tracking 3D position. It had IMUs, so you were tracking movement, and it was a very convincing. Hey, here's a machine gun that I'm carrying in a science fiction environment.
Yeah.
They were using a laser sight to with the actual beam that you could see, not just a dot. So you would see, if you ever played the old 3D shutter games that NVIDIA enabled ages ago. The way you always had to aim those was with a video card driver enabled laser beam that came out, and just where it intersects is where the bullets went. And this is the same thing. Worked really well. You could kind of aim down the sights with this, but that was only effective at certain ranges because it seemed like there wasn't, like when you look through a normal gun, there's a sight in the back and there's a sight in the front, and you line the three up, and that's how you kill stuff. With this, they only had a circle, and so you could get the perspective off. There wasn't a front crosshair equivalent, but it was really fun. You controlled movement not by walking, but by using the thumbstick, one of the thumbsticks.
Yeah.
And you were moving much faster than I have in a first-person shooter since like TF2, without motion sickness.
I'm surprised that anybody did that kind of demo.
Yeah.
I think they were surprised that they did it too.
And that was one of the takeaways. They're letting developers really experiment. They had second last game we'll talk about. You were wearing Morpheus while riding a bicycle, and you're in the game you were on a horse, basically simulated riding a horse, and it's like how you can basically merge VR with exercise.
Yeah.
And I was pedaling fast, and it was immersive.
Oh, you were on a bike.
He was on an exercise bike, like a full-size bike hooked up to an exercise rig.
Yeah.
It was really funny.
And were the pedals hooked up to the game? So
pedals were hooked up against the faster I pedaled, the faster
I think the wheel
ran.
was hooked up to the game, but the same difference.
Right.
And I could turn. I could turn.
Really?
But it was one of those things, as I got further immersed
Yeah.
And pedaled harder, I felt like I could have accidentally flipped the bike over, like turned it over outside. Because you don't get the same sense of momentum in the game as you do in the real world on a stationary bike. They'll need to work on that. But
You want a recumbent bike for that, I think. Something your center of gravity is lower.
Yeah.
or elliptical, for example, as a walking example.
I think elliptical would be really hard. I think it would be too easy to fall off of an elliptical if you couldn't see what you're doing.
Yeah. Try going on a treadmill and doing anything but not focusing on the treadmill, right? You can't wear VR and walk on a treadmill and not expect to fall over.
Well, yeah, if the VR drifts a little bit, you'll just walk off the edge and eat shit.
I'm getting dizzy just thinking about it.
Exactly. The asymmetrical game was really, really fun. Will wore the headset and was a monster, as a dragon, and chasing four characters. In his perspective, four tiny people running away from him.
So that's interesting.
On this path.
I didn't think that was a very fun demo.
Well, maybe not. So it limited what you could do in VR because you were using your head to bash buildings and stuff. But from the other four players' perspective, we were looking at a normal TV, and we were running away from him and seeing the dragon. The dragon itself was cute, wearing a Morpheus headset, and he was knocking buildings over. And we were running away, and then it flipped around to where at the end of the game, the four players threw things at the monster. Like
that part was fun. This part was fun.
Will saw from the reverse perspective things being thrown at him, and he was dodging them.
This sounds like a really fun party game.
This is something, again, this would be a fun thing you could play. Like we both have kids that are too young for VR, right?
Yeah.
This is something that everybody can play and have fun with, hopefully.
Right.
And this is part of Playroom VR. I don't know if they're actually going to call it that.
No. There was a name for it. There was like some monster bash or something as its official name.
Yeah.
the takeaway from that is, again, PlayStation has this advantage that most people have their PlayStation 4s in their living room,
Yeah, right.
in front of couches, and they know that with the processing power of PlayStation, only one person is going to be able to wear a Morpheus at a time. This could be foreshadowing what their killer app is for Project Morpheus, which is the party game.
It's really telling that they had Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes sitting in a really prominent space at the front of the booth where they were giving demos to the general public, right?
And mentions, Shu mentioned it specifically in his Engadget interview as one of the best experiences. So that's not something, when we talk about, social, and we'll get to this real soon, social being a real important thing for VR.
Yeah.
The social doesn't just have to be between two people wearing headsets.
Virtually.
Virtual social. It could be the social experience of someone in VR and other people seeing it from in the same room, or not in the same room, but a non-VR traditional flat screen experience.
That's what Morpheus has going for it.
Exactly.
I think the big takeaway is the other thing that Morpheus has going for it is much easier to get on and off, and to adjust for other people. So whereas the Oculus, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is something that seems like you're going to set for yourself and then adjust infrequently if you have somebody else coming over that's going to try it. The Morpheus, the new ergonomics for it are really good. You just stretch it out over your head. It snaps into place. You twist a little dial on the back to cinch it down. And then there's a button on one of your thumbs, I think it's the right thumb, that slides the visor in and out. So you can pull it as close or as far away as you want. And it works with glasses.
Last year, it was hovering a little bit in front of my face.
Yeah.
You can now get it a little closer.
Yeah, so you can basically the process for putting it on is you put it over the halo goes around your head. And this was also interesting.
We described this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. This was the only place that they let you put your headset on yourself. I think we put the Oculus headset on at the end, but for the most part, people put the headsets on you at all the demos. Still.
The FOV is comparable to the other.
It's still like looking through a dive mask, but it's fine.
Yeah.
The other thing that's notable is that they did specifically say there's no secret. Like we've always heard rumors with Morpheus that there was going to be an extra box that provided graphics processing power, and they absolutely said no. It is all rendered on the PS4.
Yeah, the box that we saw was just a splitter, so you could see what the person. And that again, the thing that they've done that actually Oculus has not done is able to render a mirror, unskewed, undistorted mirror image on the TV. So asymmetrical gaming works because the PlayStation can render two things at once,
right,
on the flat screen and what the person's seeing. But the other mode, which is the mirroring mode, which they've had since GDC, is show people on the couch what the person wearing the glasses is seeing without it being two circles. It's just being flat, looking good. And that was why we could actually put cameras in front of it and see see good stuff.
Pricing, availability?
Nope.
Nothing.
Q1.
It's Q1.
No. They didn't
It's the
say
first
Q1.
half.
They said early next year.
Okay.
No, I don't want to put
Early
words
next year seems like Q1 to me, but okay, you're right. We should not put words into Sony's mouth.
Or pricing or anything. The London Heist stuff was also super fun. But again, watch our video for all that.
There's a lot more on all the stuff there. Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
So here's the actual sequence of events is that we went to Starbreeze and then we went to Oculus and we went to Morpheus. I wish we had done it the other way around, because if we had seen going to Morpheus after seeing Oculus, a little bit of a disappointment.
Oh, really? Because they both have motion controllers.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So CV1, we talked about the hardware last week a ton. I don't think we need to go into like the cloth or any of that stuff, other than to say in reality it is much lighter on your head than I expected.
Yep. And works over glasses. If you're not wearing glasses, you put it on like a baseball cap from the back over. If you are wearing glasses like me, I put it from the front over.
And then pulled it back over the back of your head.
Back.
It looked like it was kind of ill-fitting on you. I don't think you had a good fit on the CV1 demo when you were...
Worked great.
Felt good?
Felt really good.
Cool.
Didn't fog up. And the big takeaway from the CV1 wear experience versus Crescent Bay is that sweet spot is across the entire lens.
It's really, really big compared to anything we've seen. Actually, Morpheus has a really big sweet spot too, because I don't think they're using Fresnel lenses. But the sweet spot on the CV1 stuff was outstanding.
That's great.
Like at no point, it wasn't even like you adjusted it and got it right. It was like when I put it on the first time, it was in the right spot.
And people ask, why didn't you talk about screen door effect and stuff like that? I don't think that matters as much, because we know what the resolution is. We know it's OLED screens. The diffusion using Fresnel lenses look almost exactly the same as the Crescent Bay prototype, where it's more like the linen effect, and it kind of moves around as you tilt your head. But the clarity of the image is across the entire field of view.
The crispness, you mean?
The crispness of the image
Yeah.
is across. There's no distortion or blurring on the sides.
There's no blur as you move. Like everything is just unbelievable. I got walked out of there and told Norm it was the crispest like flat screen I've ever seen.
And I don't know, because we didn't try Vive at E3. I don't recall Vive being like noticeably worse, but I can't do a comparison.
I think we have to see them back to back in order to say.
I remember Vive being much better than Crescent Bay.
Yes.
So it sounds like they've improved the optics.
Yes.
So the thing I would say is that if you're worried about screen door, it's kind of like MPEG 2 or MPEG 4 H.264 compression artifacts in video, right? Like when people started using MPEG 2 compression on DVDs and stuff like that, you would occasionally notice those blocky bits in the dark patches or in red gradients and stuff like that. Your brain filters that stuff out almost immediately. And while I was able to look and see screen door when I was wearing my contacts inside the CV1, it's hexagonal, so they don't stand out as much. You know, they're round, not square. B, within a moment of putting the glasses on, as soon as I stopped looking around at like what my field of view was, what the dive mask looked like, what the screen door looked like, I immediately forgot the screen door as soon as I started playing anything. It just disappears into the background.
FOV, also a big question that people had. Now they still won't confirm what the FOV is, except that it's larger than 100 degrees. But Nate made a really good point that FOV is not a really good metric because it changes depending on how far you put the optics to your eyes.
So you had a narrower FOV than I would have because you were wearing your glasses and I was resting right on my eyeballs.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want that best experience, because the lenses have such a good sweet spot area, put on contacts if you can. That's probably the preferred way to wear these glasses.
Yeah.
The game demos we saw, it was great that they actually had playable versions of the clips that we saw at the press event. The Chronos game, Edge to Nowhere, even the hockey game that Will played.
I played the hockey game.
We
Holy
couldn't
shit.
shoot any of the stuff.
See, I thought that was going to be a motion control game, but you said it was a.
I wish it was a motion control
gamepad game.
I've never wanted anything to be a motion control game more. The thing that I was interested, the reason I played the hockey game, we sat down, we had time to each play 2 or 3 demos. And I wanted to make sure I did the hockey game because it's the first time we've really seen anything that happens in the real world in VR or a representation of that. And I wanted to see what that experience was. And I immediately understood, like putting those goggles on and sitting in the goalie's skates, I immediately understood more about how hockey works than I have in playing years of EA's NHL games and watching a lot of hockey on TV, right? Like the fact that hockey players use the other players on the field as a screen so that the goalie loses the puck and how quickly that happens was immediately apparent. And it is such I am too old and slow to be a NHL goalie. But it was super cool, and that is the kind of experience I cannot wait to get more of.
Yeah. Chronos and Edge to Nowhere, both third-person games. We talked about this in the video, how developers still figuring out how to use the camera for a third-person game.
Yeah.
Chronos is that God view fixed camera. You move your head around to look basically using VR as a way to look at a bigger palette.
It's almost like a security
canvas.
camera, right? Or something like a Shadow of the Colossus, where the camera's fixed when you enter a room.
Alone in the Dark.
Alone in the Dark is another good example.
And they need to tweak where the camera location is for each of the rooms. The dissolve, the switch between cameras can be jarring, where if you're walking away from the camera and then jump suddenly to the player walking toward you.
It's almost like they need an interstitial or something in that, like showing you going through the doors, swooping through the door.
Well, even
like
within
that.
the same room, they would switch. And then Edge to Nowhere had the camera following the player, but not doing too much on its own.
It was if the camera was on a rail, kind of tracking the player as you went.
But it wouldn't. It would be from the way the camera moved to orient. Like at some places it would be at a 45-degree angle above the player. At some places it would be level with the player. Mm-hmm. That transition happened between environment scenes. So if you're running across a bridge in an outdoor environment, you're going to be hovering above the player. But once you get inside the cave, then the camera dips lower, and then you only see that one transition once, and it's not just like flying around all over the place.
I thought that demo was pretty amazing. Like that
I really,
was
really enjoyed, and that felt like made from. I mean, it was Insomniac, so they've had experience. It felt like it was made from people who have a lot of experience making games.
and it felt more like watching that clip reel that they showed at the press conference. I was expecting kind of a survival horror-y thing, and it was much more of a Uncharted style kind of platform adventure type game.
What about the dungeon one, the medieval looking fantasy game?
Is this Chronos?
That's Chronos.
Yeah, how was that?
That was the one
That's-
with the fixed camera,
yeah.
security camera.
Oh, okay.
Frame rate on
Gotcha.
all this, but okay, so things that were consistent across all of these.
Because in the video it wasn't that at all, right? I thought it was more of a tracking the player kind of camera
It
movement.
does track the player, but the camera position's fixed. So the camera position, you move your head to move the camera.
Yeah, right. Gotcha.
Yeah, it was weird. But I think that actually works. The transitions, Norm was right, were kind of herky jerky.
Right.
The frame rate on all of this stuff was really, really smooth.
We were also in a massively cooled room, and this has been the case for all of our, the 3 Oculus demos we've done this year, because they're basically running the latest graphics hardware, and
I assume
pushing
Titan
those-
X's, right?
They're all running. They've
Yeah.
been running Titan X's since GDC, and they needed those rooms cool.
Yeah. But it's impossible to, the difference between this and the other VR stuff we saw yesterday in terms of the persistence of vision stuff is amazing. Like, it is a night and day difference when you put those glasses on versus the stuff that Sony is doing, and definitely the stuff that Starbreeze was doing.
Low persistence.
Low persistence. Yeah. I mean, you can move your head as fast as you can, and there's no blur, which is amazing. Again, I want to see Vive and this back to back, and then I want to go back and forth from rooms with Vive and this for a few minutes and see and experiment with different stuff. Anyway, then we did
Oculus
the touch
Home?
control. Yeah, the
Oculus Home. Now, they didn't have the actual Oculus Home. They had a version of it that we couldn't film to launch these E3 demos, but they did confirm Oculus Home would also be coming to mobile.
So you couldn't see the environmental previews?
No, they didn't.
No,
They didn't want to show that.
It was basically a wall of moving screens with logos
Dashboard.
on them. That it looked like an Xbox dashboard that kind of wrapped around. Yeah,
floating dashboard in a rendered environment. But he said they could do interesting things with the environment. They didn't really they didn't want it to be like the Valve, and the Valve one could not. It doesn't have to be final. The one we saw with Vive was you walking around and kind of tapping a console, activating a physically represented console in that world. Here's just a floating screen. It's just different paradigms.
So let's talk about Oculus Touch.
Sure.
We went into yet another demo room after seeing these game demos and talking to Nate. And Norm strapped into the VR. Well, first off, this room had like egg crate sound dampening stuff on the walls, a couple of the positional cameras.
2 positional cameras.
2. Yeah. Facing the place where you were standing. And you put on, it was Crescent Bay?
Yep.
And the Half Moon prototype controllers.
Yeah.
Working ones.
Were the cameras 180 degrees apart?
No, they were like right shoulder, left shoulder.
Okay.
Up high.
Yeah.
Looking down. So Norm put the glasses on, and then I don't know what happened. I was talking to Nate. So when you put the glasses on, what did you see?
So someone handed the 2 touch controllers to me, and they didn't do what Valve did, which they had the controller. They didn't have the controllers rendered on screen initially, and they kind of put the wrist strap over my wrist first, and I actually had to peer through the bottom of the Crescent Bay to get the controllers in my hand. But once
They were a little awkward to grab.
Yeah. But that's not to say they couldn't represent those controllers.
What were you looking at in VR when they were handing them to you?
They show up as hands.
Hands, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
I gotcha.
when you instead of so this is a big difference between Vive, how they represent the Vive controllers, where when they hand you, even with the 6-axis stem system, what you see in the virtual world is a representation of the controller in perfect 1-to-1. Here, they didn't show the controller at all. It was a representation of floating hands.
Yeah.
And this is where inverse kinematics can play, not with the elbows, but with the joints of your fingers. Now, in this toy box demo specifically, they wanted to show multiplayer interaction with gestures and interaction with objects. The abstraction of your hand was binary, the finger movements. So your thumbs could go thumbs up or thumbs down. Your index finger could point out or point in, or you can do a grab motion, a fist close or fist open with the grabbing trigger.
So there's almost an inherent delay that I imagine involved with that, because you have to pass the threshold. Like when you're putting your finger forward, it doesn't move until it crosses the threshold.
Yes, and when you speaking of thresholds,
Yeah.
thresholds, the thing that made it real clear was that didn't matter for this. It was convincing enough. Just like there was a threshold with the Vive controller with the thumb on the trackpad, the Valve Steam controller pad,
The touchpad, yeah.
the touchpad. What did we call it? We called it the uncanny valley for presence. Was passed for this
Cool.
controller.
Yeah. So as soon as you, in terms of what it was showing, as soon as you took your fingers off the capacitive sensors on the thumbstick or the index finger button, basically you regardless of what your finger was doing, it was either fully extended or curled back. Fully extended or curled back. That was fine.
Yeah.
Immediately abstracted that out, and my brain took care of any kind of disconnect between where my fingers were and where I was. I'd be interested to go back and watch the video and see if I was making pointy fingers when I had my fingers off, or if I was just neutral and away from the buttons.
Yeah, and also, I mean, your awareness of your body, if your mind is thinking pointy, even if because you're not looking at your real hands, your mind is just thinking, you're associating, releasing the trigger with pointing. That mapping helps.
And the other thing to note is that like the middle finger button, they're basically using that for grab and to turn on collision for the hands. So in the toy box thing, which we were looking at, basically as soon as collision was on, you could push stuff. So if you had a box on the table in front of you and your finger was extended, you could push the box. If you didn't have the grabby thing, your palm I think would be open, or was it just ghosted out?
No, it was open.
Yeah, then it was open and you wouldn't move through things.
Yeah. That's not to say, because Palmer did say that it didn't have to be binary.
Yeah.
That we thought that there are many ways you could detect whether the finger is on, in the right place. It could be the IR being obstructed. It could be capacitance. We don't know if there's a proximity sensor in there. In this demo, in this software, it's binary, that abstraction, but there could be degrees of detection of where your thumb is and where your index finger is.
But they're looking for specific gestures at this point?
Yeah, it is specific to pointing, thumbs, and grab.
No middle finger?
No middle finger.
Pew pew, laser gun,
Yeah.
point, thumbs up.
Got it.
Yep, and grab, open, close.
Yeah.
Now the grabbing, as we talked about in the video, you had to learn that grabbing, as in the real world, where you grab with all your fingers, grabbing in here is a middle finger
so
action.
You said it took you a minute or two to get used to that.
But once you're used to that, then you realize that when you grab, just try it. Try picking up objects on your desk only using your middle finger.
Yeah.
I do that all the time.
Only using but not your thumb.
Well, you can't pick stuff up with just
exactly.
one finger. No,
I mean, your middle
my
finger.
thumb is.
I'm saying don't wrap your thumb around. Just use your palm of your hand and your middle finger to grab things.
I feel like this was a lot less difficult for me than it was for you.
But that is the. Think about it, because the thumb and the index finger aren't part of the grabbing motion.
Well, I also don't jump by pressing an A button.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I don't jump. Let's be honest.
it's not perfectly intuitive, like 100% intuitive, but it is super simple to learn.
Within 2 minutes,
That's why I said a minute.
I had to stop thinking about it, and by the end of the demo, I wasn't making the mistake anymore.
A minute learning curve.
Yeah, it was
That's all
super
it is.
fast.
The collision wasn't fast enough that we could, for example, juggle. I think both Will and I tried to juggle, and I tossed two objects in the air, and I was able to at best catch one.
So for me, the problem wasn't the collision; it was the snapping. So when you would grab, the object would snap into place, and that would throw off the position of the hands for the next toss.
Are you saying that this was a fault of the tracking or the software?
I think it's part of the software. I think the physics model isn't complex enough
Right.
in the toy box for that to work.
But you could do things like pick up a firework or a Roman candle, and then because it was multiplayer, the floating head and hands of the person across the table from you could light a lighter, and you could light it.
Where was physically the other player?
He's in the room next door.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they were actually in separate rooms. but you're sharing a virtual space.
Could you hear him?
You
Yes.
could. You could, and there's microphone. Yep.
His sound was positional, so when he was in front of you, he sounded like he was in front of you. When he was off to the right, he was off to the right.
And sound was. There's also Doppler.
Yeah,
Oh wow! And what's the audio quality like?
pretty good.
Oh man!
Like the microphone, I didn't ask. I should have asked. Was he using the same microphone we were? Or was he using a different
I think they're
microphone?
using both Crescent Bays in those demo rooms.
Okay, so-
and the microphone I think in Crescent Bay is different than the microphone in
In the CV.
because they wouldn't say exactly where it was.
Well,
in the
Nate said they're
CV1.
still working on like the microphone placement is probably one of the last things they're going to decide
behind the
because
cloth.
it's going to go behind the cloth and they'll move it until they get the optimal position that they can put in for manufacturing and all
Got
that.
it.
One other thing we talked about a little bit was that like the fabric stuff is literally they're doing all new manufacturing stuff. Nobody's really done that on this scale before. So it's a huge manufacturing challenge, which is a little bit concerning. You know, I hope that it's not going to cause demand problems or slowdowns in their ability to deliver these next year.
The way the fabric wraps around the eyepieces when you change the IPD
Yep.
looks really futuristic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
And it's a different fabric for the inside. Than
It's
it is for
stretchy on the
outside.
inside,
Oh, yeah?
not
It's
on
more
the outside.
stretchy than the inside. And those faceplates, they wouldn't demonstrate how you could take them off, but they said like that's where you had the most contact with your.
No,
well,
Nate said you can't take the
can take the-
mesh off.
the interior faceplates, the whole faceplate you can change.
I didn't think you could do that.
Palmer said you can change, and Nate did say you can change faceplates.
Yeah.
He didn't
Oh.
want to take them off on spot because of that engineering sample.
Nate said you can't change the gasket that goes
yes.
around your face,
What
though.
you
That's the
cannot
one I'm
change
concerned about.
Is the gasket, which is weird because in Gear VR, it comes with multiple gaskets.
Yeah, and Valve is going to ship multiple, or at least the prototypes they had multiple gaskets as well. Okay, so you can pick things up. You can hand them to each other. You can grab things from somebody. We could play catch. Like it was fast enough that Chris could throw things to me. I could grab them out of the air. They had physics on like frisbee-like stuff, so you could fling the frisbee thing and it'd circle around. You could grab it.
Yes. This was not the demo where they had the eyes moving, though. The abstracted eye movement for conversation.
I think that's probably good. That would have been really creepy.
Did they show that demo?
they didn't show that.
Okay, because that was just Carmack playing around,
Yeah.
right?
They did have so the head was tracked and mapped. So when the person across from you nodded or shook his head or tilted or something like that, you saw all that. They also when there was voice coming through, there was kind of a little squiggly animation on the jaw area that indicated, presumably if you have more than two people in the room, hey, there's this person. This is the person.
And
that's
this is like a
talking.
wireframe head and wireframe hands.
Oh, so no eyes.
No eyes.
It was,
Okay.
it was
Looked like a
wireframe
Cool.
mannequin.
And you're just seeing hands. So there's no wrists, there's no forearms. It's all just hands. You could pick up guns. You could aim down the sights of the guns, of the virtual guns, using the triggers and
Worked
pew
really
pew.
well.
I totally did I'm gonna invoke Django Fett, but I totally did the Django Fett two blasters lined up, shooting as fast as I can at targets that were flying through the air, and was able to hit moving targets.
Doppler was really cool. I mean, this toy box world, they could load different physics simulations. So you can be on outer space, more real world like gravity, but
One person could be huge, one person could be
that's what I'm
tiny.
saying. So the Doppler stuff.
That's not Doppler, though.
Well, the sound is Doppler.
Really?
For the scale.
I thought Doppler was just about movement. Anyway.
Anyway, they shrunk. You could shrink, or they could shrink. You could shoot a shrink ray at someone, and the voice would then distort, and also the IPDs would change.
That's so cool.
So
I mean,
if
that's
it makes perfect sense. You're in that shared same rendered world. I'm now the size of the toy, and the person, their rendered hands and head is bigger. They sound
like
different,
a giant.
and their movements are accentuated. And your movements are
How so?
Because when they move, like if they move 1 foot in the real world,
Yeah.
to you they're moving,
40 feet.
40 feet.
It's like if they're a giant.
Yeah.
They had a bunch of RC stuff, so you could pick up RC. They had representations of the controllers that you had in your hand that you could pick up and then use to control RC tanks. So you
Right.
were using.
Wait, so they did have modeled versions of
They
the
had modeled
controllers?
versions of the controllers that you could pick up.
yes, they did. But it wasn't exactly
It
the
was
same.
it was not
controller.
it didn't have the half moon. It was just the thumbsticks and
Oh,
buttons and
Yeah.
trigger.
Okay.
So they had it, and it was weird because it was a virtual, Wii nunchuck basically on the
Yeah.
table, and you're already holding one in the real world, but you kind of put your hand over it and grab it, and it snaps into place. And once it snapped, then it felt more 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But that gave you the idea of how you would have a trigger and thumbstick to control traditional games or
Yeah.
to use like a laser pointer to map stuff around.
Well,
Yeah.
tell me about how one-to-one that was, because that was the big question I had when you guys were going into this. Is it,
It's one-to-one.
It is one-to-one.
It is one-to-one.
The most one-to-one. It is as one-to-one as I remember the Vive being. Now that's
Now the difference.
take a grain of
again-
salt with that because it's 3 months ago, and memory of stuff like that is notoriously hazy.
And
So
they were representing different things.
Yeah.
One's representing mostly controller on the Vive side, and one's abstracting and representing a hand on the Oculus side. So it's one-to-one.
Yeah, but when you're holding those controllers, that's what intrigued me, because you had a
when you're holding like the control, the problem was that controller wasn't perfectly represented, like polygonally. It was still it looked it looked smaller in my mind.
This is very encouraging. It sounds like at worst they're minor differences.
well, so it's unclear if they're going to ship the toy box stuff. Like that seems like it's just a prototype that they built in house to work on, to give them a place to test out these prototypes.
yeah.
But it's like they explicitly mentioned that Matrix. They want, I think, and based on this demo as a testing demo, as a testing software, and what John Carmack has talked about for the social stuff, they want that Matrix white room to be a place where people can interact.
And noodle around.
And exactly.
Yeah.
And there's no reason, I think, that you can have more than two people interacting. And it couldn't. If Facebook wanted to build a VR MMO, this is a great place to start.
The thing that first off, when this demo was over, I was super sad. Like I was ready to keep going. The different gravities, all that stuff was really, really compelling. It was
Different gravities?
yeah, like there was a space level where there was
Oh, I see.
high inertia, low microgravity, basically.
Were you moving around ever?
No,
you
not
know,
in this
like
one.
through space? Okay.
Basically-
You could walk around that room,
Yeah.
and it was more than the 4 foot by 4 foot Crescent Bay, because they had two cameras, and they said even one of those cameras could map the whole room.
Yeah.
With how wide it was, but the demo never encouraged you to walk up to the wall. Although Palmer said you could, and you could just walk up to a wall and and it didn't pop in.
I don't think the cords were long enough for us to walk up to the wall he was pointing at. But the thing I noticed was they didn't have the things designed to invoke the sense of presence that Valve did in their Vive demos at GDC. They didn't have the whale that brought the fluke up and tried to hit you in the head so you duck and stuff like that. However, when I dropped something off of the table that was in the toy box and I bent over to pick it up, because I dropped it, it hit the floor. The floor was where the floor was in the real world. I bent over to pick it up. I stepped back so I wouldn't whack my head on the table when I bent over.
The thing that invoked the
without
most-
even thinking about it.
The thing in the Valve demo, and which I know you didn't try, this specific demo that invoked the biggest sense of presence was the art demo, using the Vive controller as a paintbrush, painting in a 3D space, and then walking around your object. And the reason that was so good is because it takes into account space. The spatial room that you're walking in is mapped to a space that you are interacting with by creating a sculpture, basically, a paint sculpture. And the Vive, this toy box demo didn't map their table space to the room space you were in. It was mostly the controller mapping.
And none of the touch demos actually allowed you to thumbstick move a character through the space either.
You didn't move a character through space. The thumbsticks was you didn't move your character. One of the thumbstick demos let you drive a little tank around the space, which was really, really good.
Cool, but in terms of motion sickness, they played it safe.
They played it safe. It was it was very similar to HTC in that to the Steam VR stuff in that sense. In that there was no there was no translation of movement that you didn't invoke yourself by walking. I would love to be in a situation where I can walk from the Vive stuff into this and then back, and I think that's the only way we're gonna know
Next year.
Yeah, hopefully. It was super good. Like the touch thing, I having the capacitive sensors on the buttons was a big surprise and was a huge impact on the being able to represent your fingers in different ways is incredibly valuable in VR. And I wonder if when we saw that announcement for the Touch, I thought, oh, okay, the min spec is going to be the Valve controller, and this is going to be the +1 for Oculus specific stuff. I'm not sure that I think that's still true.
And min spec is something that they don't want to. They're not going to design for.
No, I mean, Palmer actively said they're not designing for mid-spec. They're still pushing things as hard as they can.
And it's going to change.
Yeah.
Are you gonna have a hard time playing gamepad games having used touch? Do you think?
No, I mean, the interesting thing for me is that as a control surface for potential games like cockpit games and stuff like that, like I could totally, like, where that Steel Battalion game for Kinect was a horrible disaster and didn't work, I could totally see using these controllers as abstractions for my fingers to literally reach out and flip switches and do things.
What Jeremy's asking is, are you going to have a tough time going back to gamepad?
No, I mean, no, it's apples and oranges. But what I'm saying is, as a way to control more complex things than a gamepad allows in a VR situation, I'm really excited about this, and Vive too. Frankly, I think both of them have a lot going for them. I feel like I'm gonna have better granular control with this than I did with Vive in the demos that we saw at GDC.
Yeah,
So
Steam needs its own toy box.
Yeah, we'll see. The social aspect of this is pretty amazing too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine a game where, because it's all on PC, cross-platform, someone's interacting in toy box with, in the virtual space, VR life, with Vive, and someone's interacting with in it with Oculus, and only the Oculus people can point and give thumbs ups.
You do a gesture on the thumb pad with the Vive, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like that's a good place for us to take a quick break and play a little music and bring a word. Yeah, bring a word from our sponsors. Then we'll come back. We'll talk about the Xbox Elite controller, which Norm and I saw. And then all the news from E3 and a bunch of other stuff. And now a word from our sponsors. You know that great advertisers support the show and keep it free for you. One of the reasons why advertisers love This Is Only a Test is that they know that the show has amazing listeners. Right now we have a survey that I'd love for you to help us take to help us learn more about our audience. You can go to podsurvey.com/test. Now, you've probably already filled out one of these surveys before. We did one last year, but one of the things that the advertisers like is to keep a constant kind of check. The show is constantly growing. We're constantly getting new listeners, and they want to know what you guys are into so that they can get ads that target you and that you're going to be interested in hearing, and not stuff that you don't care about. So if you would go to podsurvey.com/test, again, it's podsurvey.com/test. Even if you've done it before, please do it. It definitely helps support the show. And when you're finished, you can enter a monthly drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card.
Awesome.
We only take your email address so that we can contact you if you win the gift card. It's not for any kind of marketing information or anything like that. That's pretty much it. So thanks for helping us find the very best advertisers so that we can keep this show free for you guys and keep posting it every week. Now back to the show.
What would you buy $100 on Amazon?
Well, I'd buy 2/3 of an Xbox Elite controller.
Oh boy.
I don't know if I would buy 2/3 of an Xbox Elite controller, but we did see the $150 Xbox One Pro controller.
Yeah, it's called the Xbox One Elite
wireless controller.
Wireless controller,
Yes.
And it is tunable, swappable buttons, swappable D-pad.
Everything is configurable.
Most things are configurable.
Yeah.
There's a different grip to it.
So
There are paddles on the bottom.
Yeah, what are those for?
I made a snarky comment on Twitter when they announced this thing after the press conference, and then I was educated that this is a thing that people buy. There's a company that makes these controllers. They call them scuff controllers, and they're basically hacked Xbox controllers that are designed to let people play competitive shooters and stuff like that without ever having to take their fingers off the stick. So if you think about it, you're playing Call of Duty or Halo or something, you have to move your finger from the right stick to the X button to reload, or the Y button to change weapons, or the B button to jump, or whatever it happens to be. What the paddles on the bottom do is let you map buttons to them so that you can hit them with the other 3 fingers on your hand, or other 2 fingers on the bottom of your hand, and you can always keep your right thumb on that right thumbstick, so you never have to stop aiming. The difference between this and the scuff, from what I can tell, and we're not experts on the scuff, I've never actually held one, is that this seems to be much more configurable The scuffs seem to be something that you buy the one that you want for the game that you want with the configuration, button layout, and all that stuff that you want. This, you can remap any of the buttons using an Xbox One or presumably Windows 10 app. So if you want the X button to be, if you want to use the Nintendo layout instead of the Xbox layout, you can. If you want to put, right click of the thumbstick right click on one of the paddles or the A button, you can do that. If you want to map the trigger buttons to the paddles underneath because they're faster throws, you can do that. They have multiple sticks that are magnetic, so you can pop them off. Didn't seem like there was any way you could knock them off by accident, but they have a tall one that is maybe an inch high and gives you a crazy range of movement on each of those sticks. They have a mid-size one that has a convex top, a rounded, humped up top. And then they have the normal Xbox One style that we're all familiar with. The paddles you can flip around and have them point up. You can point down. You can have one point up, one point down. You can have little ones, big ones. There's all sorts of options there. And then the D-pad is configurable as well. In addition to the standard plus D-pad that the Xbox One has, you can pop that off, and they call it the faceted one.
Yeah, it looks more geometric.
It looks geometric. It looks like the inside of a square walled dome, basically. Let's see. The last couple of things: 256 profiles for different games on the console. You can load 2 up on the hardware, and there's an actual physical switch to switch back and forth between them.
Oh.
So if you're playing Battlefield and you have a sniper, you want to have more. Step back. You can even program the dead zone and the accuracy and the speed at different ranges on the sticks. So if you want it to turn really quickly at the edges and very, very slowly in the center, you can do that. If you want to switch back and forth between a sniping profile and a run and gun profile, you can do that with a physical switch on the device. That'll carry with you if you take it to your friend's house, stuff like that.
Right.
And then the triggers, there's physical switches on the back that reduce the throw of the triggers, the main triggers, so that they're 50% the travel, so that if you just want to use it to shoot people, you can do that, and it's less. It's a little bit crazy.
If you're into modified gamepads, this sounds like a dream come true.
Yeah, it costs the same price as the SCUF controllers do in the US, and it seems like, I don't know that we're going to review them. We're going to get them in. We'll do a show and tell or something. But it seemed neat for people. Like when I said, "Hey, $150 is a crazy amount of money to pay for a controller," people were like, "Oh no, this is actually a pretty good deal." It looks like if they can do everything that they're saying, it's the same price as these other third-party controllers. So there you go.
To be fair, $150 is a crazy amount.
I think so.
On a controller.
I mean, that was my initial reaction. I think that's still the same. But if you look at it compared to, say, how much did you pay for your X52? Well, okay. How much would you have paid for your X52?
Not about that. It was a long time ago. It was
$100,
about
$150?
Yeah.
It's a niche market, and niche items are going to cost more.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I looked at it. The thing that I liked is it seems like they're giving you more than you get from the existing competitors for the same price.
Yeah.
At the Xbox press conference, they announced backwards compatibility is coming to the Xbox One for Xbox 360 games.
That got some big cheers.
It's limited backwards compatibility. It seems like it's probably software based.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to backwards compatible everything. But they're starting with 15 games that are available for Xbox One preview program people right now.
Yeah. 100 games, I think, when they actually launch it.
This fall.
Yep.
And I assume that they're going down the list and looking at the stuff people are still playing and pulling those games in. And then classics, stuff that's easy to do like nuts and bolts, and excited about that. They announced that. Did you see that Rare pack? I know you're an old Rare game fan.
Yeah, I was excited to see RC Pro-Am on there.
Oh my God, so was I.
But yeah, that's a good deal. 30 games.
I mean, I would pay the $30 or $40 or whatever it was for RC Pro-Am and Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts, frankly.
I never played that.
Oh, that's such a good. It's a
You
brilliant
make
game.
ships. You race.
Yeah. You can make boats and planes and cars and all sorts of crazy stuff. The interesting thing that Gary and Mike Micah were talking about on Twitter, and I interjected in their conversations, there's a bunch of games that predate Rare's involvement on the NES that pretty much were on systems that were only available in the UK. So things like the ZX Spectrum games and some of their early Commodore 64 games seem to be on there too. So I'm interested in seeing what Rare games before the NES looked like. So there you go. Xbox One game streaming for Windows 10 users, for Windows 10 preview people, is out now. You can try that today. I haven't been home long enough to try that since they turned it on, but
that's playing your Xbox on your PC.
That is streaming games from your Xbox to your PC in another room. I'll try that before next week and let you know how it goes. And then I think that's it.
On the Microsoft side.
On the Microsoft side.
Obviously, a
tons
bunch
of game
games
announcements and
that
stuff
we're
like
not
that.
gonna talk about.
Sony announced PlayStation View is coming to LA and San Francisco now, and they're going to start doing a la carte for channels. So you'll be able to get View for Showtime.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other channel?
Machinima
Machinima.
and Fox Soccer.
It's hopefully they're going to expand that to more channels as they come. It seems like this is just the beginning of that process. The pricing on the View stuff is still the same. That's still like $60 for the base package, I think. So it's not that much cheaper than cable. But with the PlayStation TV out now and at $50 or $60 in the US, like it is a viable option for cord cutters if you want to have a kind of basic cable equivalent that's over the top. I think that was all the Sony stuff. They didn't do a whole lot of hardware stuff on stage, and we already talked about the Morpheus bits.
Yeah, Kickstarter for Shenmue is the big tech-related angle.
Yes. Fallout Shelter, Bethesda announced this during their press conference. Fallout 4, Doom, Dishonored 2.
Oh my God, Doom looks so good.
Really?
Yes,
Well,
it's Quake.
It really does look good. It's probably the goriest thing I've ever seen.
It was pretty
It's
gory.
The return of the Gibbs.
Yeah,
Jibs.
jibs.
I thought the Doom stuff looked nice. I looked kind of slow. I always think of Doom as being really fast,
It reminded me of Quake single player.
like Quake 1.
Quake 2 single player.
I think people expect Serious Sam level chaos from Doom, where really, if you go back, it probably wasn't much more chaotic than what we're seeing in the new one.
That's probably true. I thought the Dishonored 2 stuff looked really nice.
Dishonored is such an underrated game.
It is one of my favorite games of the 360 generation, of the
Yeah.
last generation. It's
so good.
Unbelievable. Everybody should play that. It's probably Steam Summer Sale's on now, so it's probably like 99 cents if you go buy a copy. You will not be disappointed. It's a stealth game and it's a shooter. You
Yeah.
can do whichever way you want.
And now there's 2 characters you can play as
Yeah.
with different powers.
Yeah. Well, did you play any of the DLC for Dishonored 1?
No, and I understood, having watched the C3, that I should have.
Oh yeah, because they tweaked the powers for the DLC. You play as the main assassin guy in
Yeah.
the DLC, and the powers work a little bit differently. So he's much more mobile than Corvo is. Like you can do the blink thing, and as long as you hold down the trigger to blink, you're freeze in midair, so you can like jump across big gaps. It's super fun.
Wow.
Really, you should totally play that.
Yeah, they were talking about how they really figured out how to make that game when they were doing the DLC.
Yeah.
So
Like
I will check it out.
DLC ups the ante on that game a ton. The Fallout Shelter is an iPhone game that's out now. If you haven't tried it, it's
Come to Android in a few months.
kind of like Tiny Tower. It's
Yeah.
one of those kinds of games. I've been playing for the last few days. The microtransactions aren't bad at all. Like you don't have to pay any money at all if you don't want to. And everybody always says that. What I mean is you can have a very fulfilling game experience without having to wait for a bunch of bullshit.
So, like Tiny Tower, in that you're controlling a Fallout Shelter?
You're the vault overseer. So you basically start with a half dozen people who sneak in right before the bombs fall, and then you have to build a habitat for them, generate power, water, and food, give them stuff that makes them happy, institute a forced breeding program, all the stuff that you've always wanted to do if you've played Fallout.
You get to name all the babies.
You get to name all that. And
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And they carry the parents' names down. So if you give my advice to you is to give the first 6 people that come into your vault, you can rename them, give them ludicrous names, and those names will trickle down through generations. I have 105 people in my vault right now. Yeah, it's pretty rad.
I don't have the patience for those kind of games.
You can send people back out into the world to scavenge.
Oh.
You get raided. Raiders come.
How do they get into your vault?
Yeah, they break down the door.
Wow.
Then you have to repair the door. It's great.
It's really good looking.
It's an amazing little game.
Hell of a way to promote Fallout 4.
I want to know, the thing I want to know, first off, if you play the game, make sure you force quit the app, because sometimes if you don't, it keeps running in the background at like full speed like you're playing, and all of your people will starve to death. Idle Thumbs taught me that is the way to solve this problem. The other thing is, I want to know if you put like famous vaults from Fallout in, like you get to choose the number of your vault when you start. I wonder if you put like Vault 117, it gives you different starting conditions. I haven't started experimenting with that yet. But it's a great little game. Did you guys watch the Nintendo World Championship stuff?
No, what happened there?
I watched the finals.
That's what I watched the very last like 2-3 rounds. They brought back the Nintendo World Championship.
Yes.
The thing from
I
Fred
know.
Savage.
Reggie did a whole thing skit about it.
Yeah, it was
he
funny.
quit and then came back.
Yeah.
So how did that end up?
Was this the unveiling of Mario Maker?
They've had Mario Maker on the floor at E3 for the last year or maybe 2 even.
Okay.
This was the first time they called it like the first time they showed it. There were a lot of questions about how it worked. Like it had different tile sets for the different games, and it was unclear how. Like it seemed like everything had Mario 1 physics, even if it had like a Super Mario World tile set.
Ah, yes.
It seems like they took a lot of the feedback from last year and went and made the game that everybody wanted when they initially said, hey, we're going to make a thing that lets you make Mario levels with all the Mario tile sets through history. Now you can make Super Mario World levels, you can make Mario 1 levels. I don't think the Mario 2 stuff was in there. Or they didn't show it.
Because that's not a Mario game.
The semantics. They have a new Super Mario Brothers stuff in there if you're into that.
Yeah.
I still didn't see anything mixing that stuff together. There was definitely some stuff where they were changing, like tweaking sprite sizes and making stuff that never would have run in the NES or even the SNES.
There's a lot of stuff that you could never do. Like
Yeah.
you could put trampolines on top of trampolines and they bounce on one another.
Yeah, you could do sideways trampolines. Basically, for the Nintendo, the final 2-player competition, when they narrowed down all the field to the last 2 people, they had Super Mario Maker as the competition, and the people who made the levels are just dicks. It was basically like those nightmare levels from hacked ROMs of Super Mario and all that stuff, where like you have to make the jump exactly perfectly. If you go too high, then you'll hit a block that'll bounce you down to your death and all that kind of stuff.
Death and chaos everywhere. The crowd was oohing and eyeing.
It was pretty rad. Like they made the final level. I think they had 3 rounds in that final. The final one started almost like a Super Meat Boy level.
Yeah. I want to play it.
I want to play it too. I tried to sneak over there and we just didn't have time. But it looks awesome, and maybe it's the last gasp of the Wii U.
Maybe.
I mean, they announced a Star Fox game, but presumably
They say Zelda's still coming too.
Zelda's still coming next year. They're going to announce. They said they weren't going to talk about NX this year, which is the next gen Nintendo platform that they hinted at. I guess
On a conference call.
Yeah, on a Nintendo Direct or something. But presumably next year will be the NX year. So
they'll be the first to the next generation of consoles, you think?
But they've always kind of been halvesies
Just
behind.
whenever they want.
Yeah.
And they release sort of 1.5 versions of consoles too sometimes.
Yeah, but like
At least the handheld stuff.
the Wii was a souped up GameCube, right?
Yeah.
The Wii U was a souped up HD Wii.
The
Like
Wii U.
the Wii U. They're not going gangbusters on new hardware, which is okay. I mean, their art style works with less capable stuff.
No, the Wii U shipped. I think the gamepad was the big innovation with the Wii U.
But then nobody used it. I mean, it seems like this is
which is the
at
question.
Look at Mario Maker. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's an awesome use of that gamepad, and it's the only console that could do that because it basically puts a computer in your hands in the living room.
Are people doing the asymmetrical stuff?
No.
That's
Hardly ever. Like Splatoon is the first thing in ages. Most of the games I played in the Wii U in the last year, you can just play on the gamepad.
Now, is it
you use
because
as one
the
screen.
reception is bad to it, or because developers just aren't coming up with interesting things?
I mean, if you look at how the DS has evolved, like the bottom screen on the 3DS has become the inventory and map screen, so it's not integral to the experience. For example, in Splatoon, the action happens on the big screen, and then you look down to get the map and the current state of the world, and maybe a mini game or something between rounds. It's not. It seems like to me that it adds a lot of cost to the machine, and people aren't really taking advantage of it. So, I don't know. I thought that the Mario Maker stuff looks pretty amazing.
Me too.
Did
you watch the videos of them actually designing levels?
No.
Because you can drag any bad guy and hold him over top of a brick, and he enters that brick, so that when the player then hits it, he pops out of it. So you can hide things in there.
cool.
You can grab any of the baddies and shake them, and they become enraged. They become like a leveled up version of that baddie.
Great.
Sometimes bigger, sometimes like on fire, moving around. You can hide, Luigi inside bricks and all kinds of stuff.
The interesting thing to me is going to be to see how the community sharing stuff works on that, because that game to me is much more interesting.
Yeah.
If I can go play your level and people are actually going to spend the time to make good levels, than because I'll noodle around with the level maker for a few hours and then probably never touch it again.
Yeah. I hope that there's a nice way to sort by, highly rated levels and things like
Yeah.
that. I do know that in order to submit your level to the archive, you have to beat it.
Oh, that
which
seems fair.
Smart touch.
Yeah. Little Big Planet 2, Little Big Planet series has always done a good job with those, like that community stuff and percolating the good stuff to the top and kind of keeping the crap away. So, I mean, I'm just interested to see if making a Mario level, now that the tools are presumably easy to make a Mario level, if normal people can make awesome Mario levels, or if it's something that like requires how much honing goes into the platformers that Nintendo makes.
Yeah.
Anyway, somebody we were talking to, I think Joey even said he wants to see this same concept for like Zelda 1 and Link to the Past.
For adventures.
Yeah, so that you can build a top-down world and populate dungeons and all that stuff.
I'm sure if this works out.
Yeah. Super Zelda Maker.
Yep.
Let's see. Tons and tons of games. I don't know if you guys want to... I feel
That's
like
not
high
di-
points.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say Cuphead.
What's Cuphead?
Cuphead looks awesome. You haven't seen that?
No.
You got to Google the trailer. It looks like a 1930s cartoon.
I love 1930s
And
cartoons.
it's a two-man team. And it looks like, if Walt Disney had made a video game in, his youth, this is what it would have looked like. It has like a touch of R. Crumb darkness to it.
Yeah.
But the animation is insane, and it's just beautiful. It looks like a cartoon that you are interacting with.
Is it hand animated?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But it's really smooth.
For Xbox, right?
Yeah, it is for Xbox. But it's one that a lot of people came out saying that's the game I want.
Sony has the DLC exclusivity window for Call of Duty now. I don't know if I mean, that's shitty for gamers, but whatever.
Sony, really?
No Man's Sky, PC, simultaneous with...
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yep.
That's awesome. I still don't know what that game is. I think you just fly around to planets and shoot stuff. They showed some space combat in that for the first time, which was interesting.
Yeah, that's a interesting game.
I mean, yes, it could go either way.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Oh, these are totally Mickey Mouse gloves.
What?
In Cuphead.
Look at that.
Wow.
See what I'm saying?
That's awesome.
I'm telling you.
Okay. Minecraft HoloLens we've already talked about. I think the rest of this we're good on. SpaceX is doing a Hyperloop contest.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
They're
Yeah.
building a test track in California. Is that right?
Let's see.
Oh, Elon's taking it back? He's saying, all right, if no one else is going to make it, I'm going to go ahead and do it.
He put it
after all."
out there.
I know.
It means it doesn't mean the Hyperloop is going to happen. It actually feels more like a progression that he's soliciting, design from students and private places.
But I mean, if we look at how this works for like the DARPA robotics challenge stuff that we went to a couple weeks ago, getting seeding some teams with money and getting a bunch of people to try different approaches to things like the capsule design, probably not a terrible. I mean, it's potentially a good idea.
It's very potentially a good idea.
Yeah.
I think it definitely is a necessary step on how to get this technology working. But it says to me that Hyperloop is much less farther along than it's way more of a pipe dream now than it could, than we thought.
Pipe dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he only released designs.
Yeah, and
It was a sketch,
Yeah,
basically.
basically.
Yeah.
An
So-
idea.
so we got to be realistic about
Well
how far we
illustrated.
are.
Man, next year I'm taking the fucking Hyperloop to E3, man. I'm not getting on an airplane.
Yeah, right.
Tesla Model 3,
The competition's gonna be next June, by the way.
we should go to that. That seems like a thing we should be at. Tesla Model 3 stuff. Details came out.
I missed that.
Well, they said they're going to do a hatchback in addition to the sedan.
Oh, that's
in
good.
case you were also interested in the hatchback version. Still a $35,000 price target and no designs yet. I think they're waiting for the Model X to actually ship.
I like
first.
hatchbacks.
Yeah.
Hatchbacks.
However-
Hatchbacks are good.
However you say that.
Yeah. There's a Raspberry Pi case. It's $9, 7 pounds. It's official, so you don't have to print or cut or
Oh, I see.
whatever you've done before. You can just get it when you get your Raspberry Pi on Amazon or wherever.
Okay.
It's Philae,
Philae's
the Rosetta washing machine probe that landed, first thing that's ever touched a comet that was made by humans.
Yes.
Woke up.
woke up.
So when it landed in a crevasse. It's solar powered. It landed in a crevasse last year, I guess. Long time ago, it seems like.
Yeah. October, maybe?
Was shadowed, didn't have enough power to run the solar panels. But in looping around the sun, it is now getting enough light that he's awake. It's awake. It's sending pictures, presumably soon.
They're trying to reorient the antenna to be in a better position.
Okay.
To send signals.
I wonder how long it has before the comet dissolves too much or it's out of range again.
I don't think comets, I think that there's enough mass on the comet that it won't
Yeah?
dissolve. I mean, I've seen Armageddon, so I know how like the steam vents and stuff work.
So you know how it works.
If it's on the steam vent, I mean, who knows what's going to happen when
Right.
when the water vapor blasts out. But Google announced some Nest updates. There's a new Protect, and they're updating the drop cam. So Google bought drop cam after they bought Nest.
Yeah, Google bought Nest for, if you forget, it was like multi-billions
It was a
of
lot
dollars.
yeah, 3 commas.
Yes, and then Nest, as a subsidiary, bought Dropcam for $500 million, I believe last year. First of all, Nest Protect, new version, still $100.
That's
now.
the
what's
smoke
changed?
detector.
That's the smoke
Yeah.
detector. No more waving. I had it to turn it off.
That's been turned off for a
You gotta
year.
do it with an app now.
Can you press the button still?
You can press the button still. It has a microphone still for maintenance. And
So you can say Nest test.
no, I think that it tries to make sure that the alarm works.
Oh, okay.
On
so it can
itself.
hear itself.
Yes. And then
Do you think it thinks its voice sounds weird?
I don't know.
Do I really sound like that? What? That's not me.
Apparently, it has a better sensor, so it can detect between like fast-moving things that are steam versus fire, smoke.
Well, steam versus fire is a difference in the optical sensor versus the smoke. Like, there's a bunch of different ways to do that.
Yep.
But
And then like big fires versus just burnt toast.
okay,
And then Dropcam now is Nest Cam.
okay. What
so,
changed? They integrated my Nest and Dropcam accounts a few weeks ago.
You have a drop cam?
I have a Dropcam.
You use it as a baby cam?
No, we got it because we were thinking we were going to use it as a baby cam, and then it doesn't work very well. It's too laggy because it goes out over the internet and comes back, and when the you don't want to wait for to know what the thump was.
1080p, it'll do better night vision apparently. Still has the same subscription service now called Nest Aware, $10 a month for 10 days of video storage and $30 a month for 30 days. But you get all
That
the
still
live
seems
stuff
really
for free.
expensive.
It is stupid expensive.
Yeah, like both the camera. Here's the thing: the camera I think is probably worth the money because it's actually a really good camera, both in light and
Yeah, it's a
at
wireless
the night.
wireless camera also, and you get that dock.
And we do use it like when we have a babysitter coming, to make sure she gets tucked in and all that stuff. If we're out, then we'll plug it
It's
in.
security focused.
It's for that,
Yeah,
but it's
security in office versus like live monitoring.
But the problem with it is I wanted to put it on the front door after we didn't use this baby monitor to see who was at the door when the doorbell rang. But the lag is such that by the time you get the app loaded and wait for the app to load and wait for the app to connect, and then the person who rang in the doorbell has been gone for 2 minutes.
There's no
So,
way to stream peer-to-peer from the camera.
not that
to
I
your
know
phone.
of.
Did you see that there was that Kickstarter for the keyhole, the smart keyhole?
No, what's the
Or
smart key?
I mean,
you mean the thing you
the
put over
lens?
your peak hole?
Peek hole.
Peephole?
Yeah.
Nope.
You can put this thing over your peek hole, and it's wirelessly connected, so you can still see. I believe you can still see through it, but when someone rings your doorbell, you can just flip on the app and
It's a webcam.
See, it's a webcam.
Huh.
Yeah,
All right. That's cool, except it takes power.
exactly.
Well, but for something that's low power like that, you can use one of those long lithium batteries, and you'll change it once a year.
I don't know, man. Wi-Fi is going to take up a lot of power.
That's true. Let's see. Microsoft shuffles a bunch of executives and is doing more reorganization. And Stephen Elop is out, hero of Nokia.
What?
Elop's gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's all I got there. AMD announced some graphics cards too, Norm. What's going on with that? I missed that
3 new
one.
graphics cards of the Fury series, R9 390, and Fury X. Basically on the high end, $650 to compete with the GTX 980. Nothing to compete with the Titan X yet. Of course, we haven't tested these. The way they've designed their cards with stream processors versus CUDA cores is different. You can't compare those numbers. But they have 3 new cards that are aligned now in their 300 series with at least up to the 980 Ti on NVIDIA side and the 970.
There we go. I think that's it for us this week. We're at 2 hours and some minutes. Anything you want to talk about? Well, here, I'll play some music. Hold on. Got to give you your interstitial fix.
I love those.
What's Norm? Anything you've been testing you want to talk about?
I got some cool tiny circuits in.
What are tiny circuits?
It's stackable Arduino shields.
Ooh, can I see?
Miniature.
Yes, miniature.
They're not Arduino shields. I mean, Arduino shields are like an actual form factor.
Right. But they're this is Arduino compatible for the software. And there are stackable shields for things like SD card slot, accelerometers, displays,
Oh, those are tiny.
and you can make things.
They're about
like,
the size of a quarter for those of you who are listening.
yeah,
Oh, thanks, Jeremy.
right.
Did you have to solder these, or did this come soldered?
Came as a Kickstarter
Okay.
reward. But they were at Maker Faire. I don't know exactly what the pricing is, but we're looking into that. But they're cool. I mean, you can build little fun little displays and projects
Tiny.
with them.
I mean, like that for something. If you wanted to do like on the captain's chair that we did, if you wanted to put an active display that actually showed something that was more than an animation, then there you go, right?
Yeah.
Presumably.
Well, that display actually can do that. It has a little computer on the back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've been playing more Splatoon when I have a minute or two.
I still haven't downloaded that.
That game is great.
I think that's going to be a big part of our summer break.
It's like the thing I love about it is that there's no favorite map because they cycle through the maps every day. So there's a pair of maps for the ranked ladder and there's a pair of maps for the not ranked ladder.
What?
And those are the only two you can play all day.
You can't go back and play your favorite map?
It cycles every day. It's
That's
new every
crazy.
day. No, it's good because it forces you to play all the maps instead of just going to the map that you want.
Huh.
Like I'm a fan.
You're talking about online.
There's only online. Well, I mean, there's
Is that right?
there's a campaign thing that you can go through. The campaign's a little weird. It's for kids. The online is where it's at. I usually play like 2 rounds right before bed at like 11 o'clock, and I'm always playing against people in Japan who are way better at this than me. It's a really neat game.
Man. All right. I'm looking forward to it.
We'll talk about Pebble Time next week. I have thoughts.
I have a new 3D printer.
Ooh,
I got the PrinterBot Plus metal.
what is the PrinterBot Plus metal?
Well, I guess PrinterBot has had a Plus model for some time since the wooden days.
Yes.
And since they made the PrinterBot Simple Metal, which was a huge success for them, they have now revised their Plus model to be metal. And I guess this is the first, like the second revision of that because they, I don't know, they call it there's a model number that they sell it under now. It has to come with a heated bed, which is mainly like the main reason I wanted it. So heated bed, 10 cubic inches of print space.
So
Bigger build platform.
10 by 10 by 1?
10 by 10 by 10.
10 by 10 by 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's fantastic. I'm super happy with it coming from the Simple Plus.
Is that 1,000 cubic inches of build space?
I don't know. I just
You
say,
multiply them.
I said whatever I said.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying if it was incorrect.
I just was letting the commenters know that,
that you knew.
We knew.
I said 10 inches cubed. Isn't
Yes.
that what it is?
That is,
10
yes. But 10
10
cubic
10.
inches, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I see
Semantics.
what you're saying.
10 cubic inches is like...
That's different.
Is like 1 by 1 by 10.
I'll say 10 inches cubed. Anyway, I'm super happy. It prints flat. Things don't warp. If you have a 3D printer without a heated bed, I've tried so many different things. I settled on this blue tape that you found that worked very well, but it doesn't solve the whole problem. The heated bed really does make flat prints.
If you want to print stuff that's a significant portion of the bed size, you need heat to keep it from warping.
So I'm very happy. It's about half the price of the Ultimaker 2, which is the one everyone really says to get. But I saved some money, and I'm perfectly happy with it.
And is it 1.75 mil filament?
It is.
Okay, that helps too.
And I've been experimenting with different filaments too. But anyway, yes, PrinterBot Metal Plus. Oh, I made a new camera mount for it.
Really?
Yeah, my camera mount is quite the popular camera mount.
I know.
on Thingiverse.
But you have the camera mount for the PrinterBot Simple Metal.
It really is like the one people use.
Yeah.
I see it on YouTube videos and stuff.
Yeah.
So I revised it for the PrinterBot Metal Plus.
Nice.
Yeah, it can't shoot the whole 10 cubic inch. I can't shoot the whole print area because it's so close.
I'll
But
tell you a secret.
it does good. What?
Did you get one of those wide angle fisheye lenses?
Yeah. No, I have a wonderful camera. It's like a third party Raspberry Pi
that's
compatible camera.
Yeah.
And it comes with a focusable fisheye lens. It probably gets the full width, but it can't get the full 10-inch height. It gets very high.
Are you using the new Raspberry Pi 2?
Yeah.
It's better?
And the devil branch of Octopi.
Devil Branch? What does Devil Branch mean?
Development.
Oh.
To the devel.
I thought you meant it was like for Satan.
No.
All hail Satan of 3D printing!
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And she's actually very close to releasing the final 1.2 version.
It's a lovely piece of software.
Has
Octoprint.
a plugin system now, which is great. Lots of people have written cool plugins, one of which records all of your prints in history, so it sums all of the amount of filament that you used,
that's nice.
how many are failures, how many are successes.
Can you put in like your price, how much you're paying for a kilogram of filament?
Well, it does do
Does that
I
stuff?
think. Oh, maybe not. No, I'm thinking of Simplify 3D, maybe, which
Oh,
does
yeah.
that.
Okay. I have a new Zojirushi.
What?
I have a new Zojirushi, a new thermal mug.
A new mug.
They sent me their new 16-ounce thermal mug, which if you put it next to Norm's, you can see the big difference is that it has a more svelte top. So the cup, like the cup where the coffee comes out, is smaller, which I actually don't like. That's my takeaway on that. So stick with the old design for the thermal mug. We'll do a show and tell or something for it at some point in the not too distant future.
Okay.
It is merely okay.
Merely okay.
Still a really good thermal mug, but the smaller mouth hole. See, if you look, Norm has a much bigger cup where the coffee
You
goes.
got a big mouth.
Well,
Yeah.
what do you mean? You don't get enough coffee?
You can't smell it. Like that one, that one, your nose goes into it a little bit. You get a little bit of the whiff, so you can taste and smell. This, you just get taste, so it doesn't taste as good. I did side-by-side testing.
All right.
Yeah.
You got to smell
The
that coffee.
bigger mouth, you want, like, why do wine glasses have a big nose hole on them?
For your nose.
For your nose. Yeah, exactly. That'll do it for us this week. We will do questions next week, I promise. I know we've gone over both the last 2 weeks. Today's outro, I haven't unzipped yet. Norm, where can we find you on the internet?
At Nchan
On Twitter.
and Tested.com.
We have a ton of stuff coming up on the site this week. We've got way more stuff from E3 than's on the site already. We'll have Morpheus video. We'll have the Xbox Elite controller video. We'll have Star VR. We'll have HoloLens.
Recap.
We'll have, I think DARPA is coming up next week or the week after?
The week
It's
after.
the week after.
Next week we're doing our week of build, new week of build. You guys got to check that out on Monday.
Hey, what did we build this
And,
time, Norm?
We are learning some more stuff with Frank. It'll be a tutorial series to learn some cool skills. And then we're also currently running the new poster promotion for the summer, the Comic-Con poster promotion. This is Adam's drawing, a line art drawing of his ILM model making toolboxes. You can check that out. Go to test.com/membership. You won't regret it.
Jeremy? Same question.
Oh, I'm at Jareware. I think both on Twitter and tested.com.
At JERWARE?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything cooking for you? You got anything coming down the pike you want to tease?
I am making progress on a revision of the game frame, which is coming along, and I'm happy with it. I got prototype parts arriving today.
Cool.
I can't wait to get home and check out.
Sticking anything? Okay. Can't wait to hear more about that as you get closer to talking about it.
Yeah, it's not ready this month, but this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And you'll keep us posted, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So today's outro comes to us from Sean. Thanks, Sean. Hi there, I didn't see you. I got excited. It happens to everybody. I have no idea on that one. You?
Nope.
It sounded live.
Yeah.
Like-
Sounded like it was outside someplace,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.